Two screens, two different views. That's what we're all about. Welcome to Dual Screen Radio, where listening is good.
This is Shane R. Monroe.
This is Chris Hentschel.
And welcome to another episode of Dual Screen Radio, where listening is good. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Shane.
So, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while, right? We've had a month off. Time to get back in the fold here.
Yeah, well, here's our monthly installment of DSR Radio.
Yeah, I might actually be able to say the monthly episode now.
Yes.
Without being wrong.
At least we'll get anyone out.
Yeah, exactly right. But we've got a really cool show for you. We're going to take a look at, like how I just jumped right off of there. We're going to take a look at the Japanese import Picross or P-Cross, however you pronounce it.
You say potato, I say potato.
That's right, and both are accurate.
I thought this was pretty funny because I say P-Cross, and I just discovered that Shane says Picross.
Picross.
So we don't want to hear any, we don't need to hear any experts out there really correcting us,
Yeah, if you want to send in and say, yes, how it's pronounced, fine, but don't give us a bunch of crap.
We did research this. So
we did try to research it.
Flack.
Yeah, so we did our best, okay?
Even opera, we've tried opera.
Yeah, we even tried opera
voice.
Speech, and they called it Picross.
Yeah.
Picross. That's probably how it's actually pronounced, which will be really funny if opera was right and we're both completely wrong.
So, yes, the import review returns with P-Cross DS.
Yes, we're going to take a look at that. We're also going to look at a slightly older title that Chris and I just sort of, Chris was first to find out how cool it really was.
I brought it to your attention. I kind of lost track. I never noticed it. I'll be honest, I wasn't really that excited over it because I'm not a big fan of the series, although that kind of just ranges, and I don't really played it much in the past. But Bomberman Land Touched, which
the
came
second
out in
installment of Bomberman on the DS. And we're also going to look at the latest and greatest in homebrew and flash card technology, the R4, right here on the show. We're going to tell you about why that's cool, what it does, what makes it so cool, and why you can't live without one.
And then every time I hear that, I think of course, the fantastic Ridge Racer 4 on the PlayStation. Everybody will know what I'm talking about when they hear that. R4!
Glad I missed out on that one. I don't want to have that stigma attached when I think of R4, but yeah, whatever. So just to kind of warm things up, get us in the mood to start talking, not that we haven't been doing it for like all morning anyway, but we've seen some interesting stories in the media, and we had some interesting things we wanted to talk to you guys about. Starting off with, of course, the fact that the DS is now the child molester's best friend, the tool of the child molester.
Right, and that's actually what it says here on. There's a link to it on dsfanboy.com. According to a local news station, DS equals child molestation tool.
Do you believe that? I mean, you'd think that we'd be over this by now.
It's reared its ugly head again.
But like once a year or something, it's like they go through these archives and drudge up these stories. And Chris actually found a video clip, a segment of a news story that actually talks about how vulnerable your children are using PictoChat.
Yeah, so any of you parents who haven't actually sat and read the instruction manual, you may not realize this, but we didn't know it, but it seems the DS is a molester's best friend.
Right. Yeah, you too can own a little piece of molestation history by owning a DS. Yeah, apparently, Nintendo cites the range of the DS at 65 feet, which if any of you have actually played any real games on the DS, know that 65 feet is very generous.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've done my own tests, and I was able to get a game of Meteos played across 125 feet through 3 walls.
Well, when you do this, you're basically in cubicles, aren't you? More or less, is it like a cubicle setup?
There were cubes, right? But I have my cubes in one room.
Cubes.
And there's a huge room with another set of cubes. And basically, what I did is I walked out of my cube, went into the hallway, walked down to this other room, and then went to the very farthest cube that I could get to. Mm-hmm. And we figured it was about 125 feet. At that point in time, the game was stuttering so bad that it wasn't really playable. But, if there wasn't quite as much action going on, it would actually start to kind of pick back up and catch up.
Right, and sure, something like PictoChat, which is a little more limited. You're just typing text. I guess it would probably be full functioning. Even.
It would probably be fully functioning, but I can't see the Wi-Fi going much further beyond that, especially through any sort of industrial-type walls. things like an exterior wall of your house, for example. It's not going to get you a lot of range. And we could actually probably do some of our own real-world tests, too. But this guy actually goes to, like, this open food court at a mall in this article. We're going to give you a link to the video.
Oh, it's a fantastic video.
It's a fantastic video. And basically,
the entertainment values is blowing my mind.
It is. And, it's so funny because you know that somebody somewhere is, like, shaking in their boots over this story, and they know nothing. And the story is, like, standard media sensationalism, They show this guy on his PictoChat at a mall, and the other person goes like 100 feet, and then they send a message that says 100 feet. Then they go another 100 feet, and it's like 200 feet. And what did they end up peaking out at? Like 225?
I think.
Yeah, 250, which is priceless because, as Chris pointed out, his network connection
was full blast.
The little bars that show how well you're connected are at full blast. So you know that this is like total fabrication. Freaking believable.
That's great. I mean, it really is. There was one point where they're saying that your kid could be in the car, and then a molester could see that your child in the car was playing it,
right?
And get on his PictoChat and start talking to him while your child was in a car from another car. Now, I don't know how this person's going to do this when he's obviously probably driving.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to be straight with you. I haven't seen a single person yet ever using PictoChat.
And I'm going to.
I
was just thinking that I have not. I can't. I mean, even when I see a kid, I don't see too many kids sitting around at the mall playing a DS. Usually, it's when he's in a boring situation, like at a doctor's office or a dentist office, or last night I saw a little boy playing one while he was food shopping with his mom. This is.
All right, let me give you a real world situation that shows just how preposterous this is. I was in line for the Nintendo Fusion Tour. This is where they get some stupid next-generation gimme band like Hawthorne Heights and Reliant K, which, by the way, who's dumb enough to name their band after a really bad car from the 70s? Right. The Reliant K. But anyway, so I'm in line, and let me tell you what, folks. You're in line going to a Nintendo event filled with teenagers, okay? Tons of DSs. I mean, tons of DSs. The line goes for hundreds and hundreds of feet around the block, right? So I'm thinking to myself, if there's any time that I'm going to be able to find somebody in a PictoChat chat room, it would be now. You would think, right? With several, with dozens of DSs in a very close proximity, especially with teenagers who love this crap.
It's pretty much DS Mecca.
Dude, it's DS Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in DS Mecca, and there's nobody in PictoChat. Let me explain to you parents out there that might be listening to the show.
Probably too scared to get on. They're afraid they're going to get molested.
You're too scared to listen to the show because, there might be a child molester on the other end. No, seriously, think about it. If your kid jumps onto PictoChat and there's nobody there, they ain't going to hang out and wait.
No.
They're going to do something else. So the chances of your child being vulnerable.
Sounds like Flash Chat.
To a DS. Yeah, exactly. It's like Flash Chat. You go in, there's like one person, he leaves as soon as you get in. No, seriously, I mean, it's so preposterous to even to lose a second of sleep over PictoChat on the DS, and yet the media sensationalism why don't they talk about how the PlayStation Portable has unlimited web access? Your kid could be online chatting with a sexual predator in a real, your kid could be on MySpace on his PSP, and you'll never know.
Your kid could be on something like, what is this? Free Ones, the ultimate celebrity and model picture thing, whatever.
Yeah, they could be on PerezHilton.com they could be looking at Britney Spears' naked nether region.
He could be on anything.
But you don't hear any stories about that. Get out of here. People piss me off. You know that? The press, media pisses me off. Old danger to children, that'd be a good story.
Well, the way I figure it is, there's no other real, they got to have some bad video game news at all times going on.
Absolutely, it's part of the.
We've already gone through the whole GTA hot coffee mod thing to death. Senator Thompson.
Yeah, we've done that.
That's all old news. So we need to get something else going. Even though this is old news and it's already been reported on, and so much of it is it's just so blown out of proportion. It's crazy.
It really is.
Originally, I saw this last year on the local news affiliate. Actually, I think it was Channel 6 here. It wasn't Fox, and just watching it was funny. I mean, honestly, not because of its video game system, which I really enjoy. I mean, but the facts weren't even true. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, these parents, we've already talked about it. There's these parents and this kid, and they're sitting in a restaurant, and the little girl's got her DS out, and she started getting these random crappy messages from some weirdo. So now it's like, oh my God, we got to call News 6. We got to get on top of this. You know, what do they? I forget what they call it. I'm sure your local news station has one too. You know, it's where a local company or something will do something bad and they want to expose them.
Yeah. Truth on 12
right.
And
Channel 6 exposed. You know, so they'll go after whatever the predicament is at hand, and they'll get to the bottom of the situation because none of the companies want to discuss it. But in this case, there's nothing to discuss really. I mean, it's ridiculous. If there's somebody sending bad messages to your kid on PictoChat in a restaurant, chances are he's 10 feet behind you or something. You know, and
you're going to be there.
Here's
the part that got me the most. This is the best ever. In this video, they show these two girls, Melissa and somebody around. They're up in their bedroom playing PictoChat with the door open, and the guy's like, "They just met me, but I was able to send them messages." You know, and they trusted me and told me what their address was and all this. Okay, first of all, dude, there's a frickin' camera 20 feet from them. There's lights everywhere. There's wires all over the place, right? And, dude, you're on their stairwell.
Granted, I am on their stairwell. Oh.
Yeah, so they show him sitting on their stairwell, which is literally like maybe 30 feet away from the girls. Now, here's the best. First of all, if there's a predator in your house sitting on your stairwell, you've got bigger problems than whether or not they can PictoChat your kids. Now, if this guy wanted to impress me, he would have gone outside and sat in his news van and tried to PictoChat him, which we know damn good and well wouldn't work. So it's like, you know what? Media sensationalism. The more I watch news and, you know, information on television, the less I believe any of it. You know, we as humans watch television, we watch the news, assuming that at least most of what we watch is real, you know, that they're not feeding us a line of crap. And it takes them covering something you know something about or that you're intimately familiar with before you realize, oh, crap, they could be feeding us crap about everything. You know, not a damn honest word could be coming out of their mouths. What are they, attorneys or newscasters? That's what I'm saying.
They love going through the throat with this, you know, sensationalism. They're trying to make it sound like the DS is killing your children, you know?
Yes, that's right. Video games are bad. Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, it's all, you got a lot of pink DSs flowing around here, too. I mean, it's almost like, I wonder if the child molester would say, I'm going to buy myself a pink DS.
Yeah, I mean, he was using a pink DS. You know why?
I want to be friendly towards the children. I want to make them think I'm okay and safe.
Did you notice there wasn't a single white DS on that whole ad or a black one?
I didn't take notice.
Did you know? You know why? Because pink is the only damn color of DS you can get right now.
You're saying
because everything else is sold out.
You're saying pink is the black sheep of the color family?
That's right. I mean, there's a limited market for pink, so you know that you can get pink anywhere. But nobody wants pink, so that's funny. They had to go get those for the news store. Even the dude on camera, when he was like showing a close-up,
it's like Pepto-Bismol. I'm not really a big fan. I really like the dark blue. Yeah. They should have brought the dark blue out.
They should have brought the dark blue over. That would have been awesome. But you know.
Anyway, we'll have a link to that, and you can check out the video. It's really a kind of amusing video.
It's actually pure entertainment.
The only people that are going to find any kind of information from this are probably 80-year-old women or whatever that aren't even video game fans or don't know anything about video games. I mean, it's all just misinformation. It really is, because instead of sitting here and saying, oh, they're going to get all their information from a news article, whatever you want to call it, like this, and that'll be the end of it. They won't even attempt to figure out, wait a minute, I wonder if this is all true. And then it shows the mother flipping through the manual and everything, you know, which is
right. I love when he's like, Nintendo's site even says
65 feet.
Yeah. Children should be warned. Yeah, blah blah blah. It's like, well, okay, then what's your point?
I mean, they did.
So in other words, we're back to bad parenting, which is what this really boils down to. How about instead of blaming the DS, you blame poor parenting?
Well, they even said it in the video. Oh, I thought this was just a more advanced, Game Boy. And then they switch over to a police officer who
I love how they have to bring in some validity to the thing. Oh, we got a police officer in here to talk about it.
It's just like on the local Channel 6 one they had here last year. They had some like IT guy come on who I don't even know if he ever played the DS, but he just started talking about the whole technology and everything. And
I liked it when they tapped the Best Buy sales dude as like the expert. That was the best. It's like, okay, your story just completely went out the window when you brought a Best Buy employee on the screen.
Well, the DS isn't as good. The graphics aren't as good. So
we're gonna show you a PSP because we got like lots of those.
The PSPs are our money handle, man. They give us a lot of money for advertising.
They give us a lot of money to have like 17 demo units out. Yeah. Would you like to touch one? I've got one in my pocket.
Did you touch my monkey?
Yeah. I've got a black monkey. DS in my pocket.
Anyway,
crazy talk.
That was the big news this week. If you go into a lot of different gaming forums, especially, that it's popping up all over the place, and it's just amusing because this is actually an old story. But I guess it's really a slow point because like I said, we haven't had our new GTA come out, and what was the last game I think that caused any kind of commotion was that game Bully on the PS2, but that wasn't even really.
Dude, that didn't even last for long.
That didn't last long.
Blam.
I think because its sales sucked. I mean, it didn't sell very well, so it didn't make a big huff. Because a lot of people weren't playing it compared to like GTA, which seems like everybody and their mother was buying at the time.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, whatever. So
I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you.
So anyway, there's some other cool stuff going on. Shane brought this up this morning. We were just kind of sitting here, BSing about things, and they had. Viva Pinata and Cameo, is that how you say it? Cameo, coming to the DS. Now, what's strange about that is, if anybody out there is also just an overall gaming fan, will realize those are Microsoft 360 games. So it's kind of interesting to see that, oh, wow, these might be coming to the DS. I mean, these are 360 exclusive titles that are obviously not exclusive any longer, if this is true.
I think that's very interesting.
And even in the article, it goes on to say it might be weird to see a Microsoft Game Studios title on the DS, but in an interview with 1UP, the vice president of Microsoft Gaming Studios said that Cameo or a Viva Pinata on a DS makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways from a franchise perspective. Now, what's funny is these guys are saying it might be weird, but in reality, we've already received a few Microsoft Game Studio titles on the DS. Yes. Age of Empires and Mech Assault, Mech Warrior, whatever. Yeah. I can't remember. I was confusing them.
And Rare put out Diddy Kong Racing, and Rare's a Microsoft company.
Right. And at the time they were still at Nintendo, but I think Nintendo had more to do with that. But they are Rare characters, and if I'm not mistaken, they did actually have to take a few characters out. Like I don't think the character from Banjo-Kazooie is in there. If I'm not mistaken, yeah. I was never a big fan, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah, me neither.
I've not played Viva Pinata. I've played a little bit of Cameo. I'm not quite sure Cameo is going to work on it, because Cameo is a pretty visual game. I mean, overboard in terms of visuals on the. I would think they would have to totally revamp that from the bottom up to really get it fit on the DS. The DS can put out some cool stuff, but it's usually when you have a experienced programmer such as Square Enix or somebody that's going to produce the best graphics. For some reason, I can't see. And Microsoft Game Studios. Who put out their two titles? Wasn't it Majesco?
Yeah.
So,
that's funny.
They came out pretty decent and everything, but I don't know how they're going to do Cameo. Viva Pinata, I don't really know much about. I have not played it. It looks another graphically impressive game. It's supposed to be getting all these, good vibes about it. Everybody's talking about how amazing it is, but I just don't have a 360 and I've not had a chance to try it. So it's interesting. I mean, if they're good games, let them come over. I wasn't real impressed with Cameo, but Viva Pinata.
It got lots of good press though, so
Yeah, exactly.
I like how they basically say, well, we need to improve our franchise or to get our franchise better known.
Right.
So instead of basically what they're saying is, there's not enough people using the systems that we put these out for. We have to put it out for a system that has more market. I love that. We're going to see it on the Wii. Dude, I would totally play a Pinata game on the Wii.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
I wonder if you just tap on a pinata. I was a pinto. A pinata with a stylus to maybe explode. I don't know.
Dude, but better yet, could you imagine taking a Wiimote and like actually using it like you had a stick in your hand and you were smacking the piñata.
Oh, I bet Flair would love that.
Think about it. Use the speaker inside of the Wiimote to make the whooshing noises. And if you do it right, then you'd be able to tell how close you were to the piñata.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
You know what would be cool is if on the screen, like your peripheral vision was blocked off, and like you had 3D characters walking around, 3D children, and then you could actually bat them in the head by mistake,
That'd be cool.
Ow! Something like out of America's Funniest Home Videos. You usually see that, and then the kid goes after the guy, like he's beating on the guy's leg or something, thinking he's beating on the piano.
Yeah, see, Rockstar, if you're listening, that's the game you need. And as you progress, your stick opens up to other weapons like a bat.
You could get away with physical violence on children.
That'd be so awesome. No, we do not condone child abuse.
Yeah, but
it'd be pretty damn funny.
It's a kid who didn't run around batting each other, playing lightsabers, And
come on, didn't anybody hit your brother or sister with a wiffle ball bat? Come on, that's like a gimmick. It's like that's the first thing you do with the wiffle ball bat. After you hit a ball, you're going, you know what? I wonder if this would actually hurt somebody if I hit him with it. And you walk over to your buddy and you smack him in the head with it.
That's great.
Didn't they do that on South Park where Cartman tried to kill Kyle by trying to beat him in the head with a wiffle ball bat?
I don't remember.
That was awesome.
You know before I would. I'm not.
One of the listeners will know, and somebody will laugh about that.
So everybody looking to. I know the game Tingle. Does everybody remember that name, Tingle, from Zelda series? It looks like he might be coming to the U.S. after all. That's one of the big news stories also this past week.
Isn't he like the retarded stepchild of Zelda?
I don't know what he is. He's like the flower child of the elves in Zelda or something,
That's funny.
It's really messed up. And I know they sent out, Nintendo had this big poll going on. I don't know if it was a poll necessarily, but they had a website, some little tiny cornerstone to their website set up. You'd have to, only the diehards would even find it. But somebody got the link to it and was spreading it all over the place. Nintendo was asking, would there be any kind of support? Would you like to see Tingle's RPG released in the U.S.? And they were anxious to hear what you thought and if it would be a good thing to do. So a lot of people were going over there, oh, yeah, I'd love to see it. Oh, yeah, I'd love to see it. And, I actually went in there. This was some months ago. But I actually went in there and wrote myself a little note. I didn't even mention Tingle. I just mentioned that I was in support for any of these kind of oddball titles coming to the U.S. Because, there's so many games left in Japan because they're so strange that they think, most of the American populace wouldn't quite get it. But there's a lot of games over there that I don't know if the mainstream people would get, but if you're a DS fan or a video game fan, you'd probably be interested in playing it. So even though I may not be interested in Tingle necessarily, I did make mention that I'd love to see any kind of oddball titles coming over. So I've not experienced Tingle in a Zelda game, probably because I think he's only been in the 3D Zeldas, which I've kind of avoided for the most part. Yeah. But just seeing it come over, what the heck, if they can do it, the game's pretty much done. All they have to do is translate and box it up. So, and speaking of strange games from Japan, another one's coming over that we know for a fact is coming over. It's one of the import titles I mainly reviewed in one of the old shows, which I'm lagging here. I should have had the title in front of me, but it's the Magic Eye Museum game where you matched up the two pictures, and you have the identical pictures and you have to circle the differences. I reviewed that back on one of the earlier shows. I want to say somewhere around episode 6 or 7, something like that. It's now coming to the U.S. It's going to be known as Quick Spot. So we'll have a link to that on there as well. We've got to get that up there. It looks like the same game, but they Americanized. They made everything English, and they've changed some of the more Japanese images to more of an American image. Like I think they replaced any of the Japanese stuff with stuff from the Namco games that have been released, because it's a Namco Bandai game. So some of the Japanese stuff has been replaced with something like Me and My Katamari, screenshots from that, and you have to find the differences. Anyway, they got some videos up on IGN, I think actually today. They just put some up. So nice. We'll get some links to that. I think it's a very fun game. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that's way cool that we're starting to get some of these quirky games over here.
I'm always in support of the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of some interesting stuff coming out, Actually, this is a little piece for the homebrew community. I ran across this, and it's not really highly publicized. It's not like DS Organized, which everybody knows about. But somebody thought it'd be clever to make your DS emulate an iPod. So somebody had started this project. It was called like Lix Player or something like that. And it was more or less like a proof of concept. You know, they had the top screen that had basically the iPod was stretched across both screens. The bottom had the wheel control, and then the top had the screen. And somebody just kind of threw something together that looked like it, but it didn't really have a lot of functionality. Well, some other guy said, dude, that's kind of cool. I want to make this work. So he picked up the project, and he started working on it.
That's awesome.
And now there's actually a working beta of this. If you're a homebrew aficionado and you happen to want an MP3 player that's not Moonshell, I really don't like Moonshell. I really don't. And I think I'm the only person on the planet
I was playing around with it. I could never get into it. And I think my problem is I'm just not a big media person on the DS, you know.
Yeah, me neither, really. I mean, I'm not going to waste valuable space to cart around a bunch of MP3s. Right. But anyway, it actually works like an iPod. I mean, you can spin the wheel at the bottom. You can shuffle your playlist.
It's definitely impressive. I was playing around with it.
It's actually pretty cool. I mean, I'm not an iPod person, and I'm not a media person on the DS. But I could totally see these, you know, the next-gen kids wanting their DS to look like an iPod.
Yeah, and the interface is pretty cool. I mean,
it works. I mean, the whole scroll wheel thing, I'm very impressed that somebody got that to work.
Yeah, it's really, really nicely done. Every little function on the iPod, interface it performs perfectly on the touch screen. You know, you turn the scroll wheel, you tap menu, or you can go down to the hierarchies of the menu system, you know, to pick artists, songs, music. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Don't know how much I'm going to use it. Actually, I'll never use it, but it was fun to toy around with for 10 minutes. And
also, for those of you who know, I reviewed the Action Replay DS cartridge, I don't know, towards the beginning of the show's run. And for those of you who are still big into Action Replay, I'm not a big Action Replay person. I wanted to get one, try it out, and demo it for the show, but I'm just not into cheats. To me, if I can't play the game right, it's pointless to cheat. But a lot of people are into it, and a lot of people aren't willing to play Animal Crossing or Nintendogs long enough to open up everything, so they want to cheat and unlock everything. Anyway, Action Replay has just released a new updater that will allow more functionality of the Action Replay. Of course, more codes, all that good stuff. All you've got to do is plug in your Action Replay DS, bring up the PC interface, and do a software upgrade, and it will download this new software. Now, the only thing that makes this even remotely interesting to me is because it's turning into more of a hacker tool. In other words, they're going to let you, do your own sort of cheats. You're going to be able to, monkey around with memory registers and stuff.
Nice.
So there's going to be some way of actually constructing your own thing.
So it's kind of like the old Game Genie, because
it's becoming more like the Game Genie.
If you sat long enough, I remember one of my pals had one when I was growing up, and if you sat long enough, you could sit and program your own cheats. Like if you wanted to give yourself 99 men in Mario or something, you could just sit there and put in all these weird coordinates, and a lot of times randomly you get some really strange results. So I guess it's
actually kind of fun.
Yeah. If you're
there was all sorts of undocumented things where you could make your heads bigger, or by changing some scale value, you could have these giant heads or whatever.
Right.
So there's all sorts of possibilities that opens up. So to me, that's of a lot more interest than being able to cheat online in Metroid Prime Hunters.
Yeah, that's the one drawback I have with any of that stuff is once you take it online, I mean you could. God forbid you were able to do it so that you can get a perfect strike in bowling all the time in Clubhouse, or you could give yourself specific cards when you're playing in Clubhouse, and stuff like that just ruins it for me.
Yeah, to me it's pointless. Why even bother playing?
Yeah, I think we even discussed the whole cheating thing on the forums at one point recently. We were talking about codes to put in for all these things, and I even said I don't remember the last time I ever put a cheat code in for a game. I think it honestly might have been back in the old Nintendo days when I was doing, the Contra code and up, down, down. I haven't really done that in a long time, and even nowadays it's like, why would you run out and buy something like Zelda Twilight Princess for the Wii, and then instantly grab the strategy guide and just go home and read it and play at the same time. It's like, why? It defeats the purpose of even paying for the software.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it invalidates your purchase. I never got that. Unless you're like, PlayStation 3, where they sell you a game with everything locked and you got to pay to unlock it, and somehow the codes unlock that extra content, which is sitting right there on the disc that you can't use.
Right, exactly.
There, I might step over the line, but anyway. Well, I don't really have anything else to just kind of shoot the breeze about.
Go ahead.
One last interesting thing, and I'm going to have more information as it becomes available. The folks behind the Easy Flash cartridge, a lot of you people who are in old Game Boy Advance fans know all about Easy Flash and the Easy line. Easy is coming out with a new product. Unfortunately, they're not selling the two pieces separately, which is really a downer because I probably won't get one now. But one of the big things, if you're big into homebrew and you're big into flash cartridges, you'll know that there's two different types of flash cartridges, slot 1 and slot 2. Slot 2 being the Game Boy Advance slot 1 being the DS slot, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Well, one of the problems when you move to a slot 1 solution is that a lot of homebrew, a lot of product assumes that you're using a slot 2 solution. So things like, for example, like the Opera web browser, for example, requires that you use a RAM pack that comes with it. If you want to play Metroid Prime Pinball with a Rumble Pack, you can't do that if you've got a slot 2 solution, but you can with a slot 1 solution. Well, a lot of us out here have a Rumble Pack. We have an Opera RAM cartridge. We have a slot 2 flash device because we want compatibility with homebrew. Well, what Easy has come up with is an all-in-one solution, a Flash 1 and Flash 2 cartridge. Comes in the same package that gives you the best of both worlds. You have the slot 1 card that gives you the good compatibility, the speed and everything for the DS side. And they're releasing a multi-function cartridge for the Game Boy Advance slot, which features not only a Rumble Pack, but also extra RAM that's mirrored directly after the Opera's RAM cartridge, and slot 2 memory that will allow you to do anything that uses slot 2 RAM will be able to be used with this on a slot 1 card in this solution. So you're going to basically get a 3-in-1 card for your GBA slot.
Now, see, that sounds really cool.
That sounds damn cool, but I've already got an R4. I've already got the best slot 1 solution on the planet. I can't see me spending out the money.
Well, yeah, but is that... Now, I was trying to look at this. I mean, I couldn't find it on the main page, but it will only work with their slot 1 solution?
Well, here's the thing. If it does work with other slot 1 solutions, you can't buy it separately.
Oh, you have to buy it as a bundle.
You have to buy it as a bundle.
I didn't know this.
That sucks.
That does suck, but you know what? Maybe eventually somebody will pop one up.
Someone else is going to do the same thing. If there's one thing you can count on in Flash World on the DS, on the GBA...
I'd be all over this. I mean...
Dude, I'd pay $50 for that right now.
I mean, you get the Rumble, you get the built-in memory. You could even put your homebrew on there, and have the Rumble.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
I mean, granted, I don't think you can't upgrade the memory. I mean, it's all built in. I mean, how much memory is in? I'm trying to figure this out. I mean, is it 256 megabit NOR flash? So what does that translate? That translates to what, 32 megs or something like that?
Yeah, they basically made it so that there will not be a single Game Boy Advance game that you can't play on there.
Yeah.
So, because that's really the thing, right? Because what's the biggest Game Boy Advance game?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's not even. I can't.
I don't think it's more than like 32, right?
32 megs. Right, 32 megs.
So as I remember reading about this thing, I remember it saying that basically
that's rare. I mean, there's not that many of them either.
There'll be enough memory on board so that you'll be able to play any GBA game with no slowdown, which is really important to people who have a large Game Boy Advance collection.
Yeah. So you'd be able to throw that one Game Boy Advance game on there, plus you'd have the Rumble support, plus you'd have the RAM flash support. So that's pretty.
Yeah.
I just like, if anything, I like the fact that it's a slimline Rumble.
Yeah, if nothing else, I want a Rumble pack that fits in my DS.
Right, it's compatible with the DS Lite with no, you don't have a tumor sticking out of the DS.
Tuba. It's not the Tuma.
I mean, it's flush is what I'm saying. Now, if they can make it white, I'll be even more happy.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's going to be white, which is fine because I dig on the two-tone color. My DS is actually black and white as it is, so it's cool.
Yeah,
I like that abstract look.
Because right now, in Japan, it's the only place you can get the DS Lite Rumble, and even through the import affiliate, Play Asia, it's like, I think something like $25, which is a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple third-party ones out there, and some of the guys in the forum have grabbed them and said they're pretty decent. But, I don't know.
Yeah, this sounds totally awesome. Oh, by the way, it looks like the first color coming out is black. Yeah, that looks really cool, dude. I finally found a picture of it. It looks sweet as hell.
Yeah, well, it's right here on the Easy Flash, easyflash.cn.
Yeah, it's 256 megabit for Game Boy Advance, so it should run any Game Boy Advance that you got in there. That's awesome. I hope they release it separate. I really do.
Check that out.
Put a link up for that, too. How exciting. See, we didn't think we were going to have anything to talk about.
No, but I think a lot of people,
especially
if you visit the forum on a regular basis, you've probably seen some of this stuff already. Right.
Yeah. We don't want to bore everybody. Well, let's move on then. Let's talk about Bomberman Land Touched. I mean, the sleeper hit of last year as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think it came out around November, and I just lost track of the game. And I think originally when I saw the main homepage was really pretty cool, and I liked the whole cartoony-looking graphics. It looked very polished and very clean. And I've never really been a Bomberman fan. I mean, the Bomberman...
Me neither, honestly.
Bomberman's been around for forever. I mean, it's been around for at least, almost 15 years now, something like that. It was on the Nintendo, it was on the TurboGrafx, and it was on the Saturn, it was on the PlayStation. It's on every system known to man. There's even been PC versions. It's the one of the game series you'll find on every system imaginable. If you have a system, most likely you can play Bomberman, and its most primitive state. It's still playable. You have it's almost like a party game where you run around and you gotta bomb each other. There's nothing really to it. You can pick up power-ups. Basically, for the review, Shane's had a lot more experience with the multiplayer.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the multiplayer.
Shane's been playing the multiplayer like a madman because you can do up to 8 players. It's got Wi-Fi, blah, 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 blah. So I am a little more limited in my multiplayer because Shane can go to the office and he's got all his DS buddies there. Me, I'm stuck with a bunch of old ladies that could care less. So I've been sticking with the single-player mode. It's just one of those games that I saw come out, and I said, this looks like it could be kind of cool, but at the same time, I'm not a big Bomberman person. And then I discovered that, in reality, the main single-player adventure mode of this game is situated around mini-games. Now, to me, the DS and mini-games are a better fit than even something that the Wii, I mean, they're going a little overboard, I think, with some of the mini-games. I don't know what it is, but the mini-games on the DS just play better for me than they do on the Wii. Which is probably why I didn't really care for Rayman so much, which I won't go into.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Instead of playing that, I got on this, and now I'm hooked. And what's crazy is if I played this on any other system, I may have not gotten hooked. But the fact that it's on the DS, you're using the touch screen, it's very intimate. We've said this before. It's almost like Trauma Center. When you're operating and you're actually physically touching the screen, and you're moving things around. So when you play the mini games in this, you just feel like you're really that much closer to the game. Now, what's cool about this game is it's 100% touch. You cannot use the D-pad for anything. So if you don't have a stylus, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
It's really cool because a lot of these games will require you to pull out that stylus at certain points, and then you're like, okay, well, you're fumbling for it back and forth between that and the D-pad. Instead of just saying, why are we even incorporating stylus control when it's useless? It's something like Final Fantasy III, where it was kind of a half-ass stylus control, you know what I mean? Because most of the stuff you didn't even use the stylus for. So that's what's great about this. It's all 100% stylus play, and it's fantastic. You start out, you're the Bomberman character. There's this little white astronaut-looking dude. He's got a little helmet on, little beady eyes. Everybody's seen him. He's Hudson's big mascot. And next to it are a little bee guy. But he's their real mascot nowadays, it seems. I think because Bonk kind of failed, so they went back and figured, let's just make Bomberman our official mascot.
They should.
So you started out with him. You're on this little your ship. You're on the ship, and you come into this island. The island is like this big amusement park. You know, it almost looks like a roller coaster tycoon kind of thing, where you have this big theme park, and everything's isometric. Everything's on like a little bit of an angle. And you have all these little huts, you have these little stands, and you move your little Bomberman dude around with the stylus. And the control play is very much like it is in something like Animal Crossing, where you can use the stylus to move around, which I really don't use too much. But it just doesn't seem as intuitive to me. But in this, it plays off because everything you do is with the stylus. So as you move the stylus around, you can either do a walk or a run. Personally, I just run around because there's really no point in walking.
Yeah.
You know, you tap on a guy, you can talk to him. He gives you some information. But each of these little booths that are set up on a part of the island are mini games. And all around the little sections of the mini games are these gates that cannot be opened unless you score so many of these tokens to open up a gate. You know, anytime you play a game or something, you can open up more stuff. Mini game. So you know, you run around, you play the mini games, and some of them start off fairly simple. You know, the controls are simple, everything just to get you up to speed. The first one that I played was more or less get to the end of the finish line, you know, before the allotted time, which I think was something like 20 or 30 seconds. So that ticks down, and you have to make Bomberman run to the other end from the start to the finish. And to do that, you just slide the stylus back and forth horizontally as fast as you can.
Yeah, it reminded me for some reason of playing a game of track and field for some reason.
Yeah, except you're not using the buttons to push. Instead, you're using the motions on the screen to make them run faster. The faster you switch your stylus back and forth, left to right, the faster Bomberman's going to go. And you know, it's a fairly simple one. I mean, he went flying because I did it real fast, and he got there.
Yeah, I felt like I was having a seizure when I was doing it.
Now, I would highly recommend you have a screen protector for this game.
Oh my God! Please, if you don't have
one already,
this
game is going to make you want one. I noticed right after I got done playing that first mini game, I can see I have scratches back and forth from playing that mini game.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. I mean, I would highly recommend the Hori screen protectors. We've gone over this.
You can pick those. I've seen those in. You don't even have to mail order those anymore. You can actually go to Fry's Electronics if you're down here in the Southwest. Especially, there's Fry's Electronics everywhere. They actually carry the official Hori screen protectors, Hori.
Yeah, and
not Hori like
right.
that chick on the corner's Hori.
You got to watch
Britney Spears is Hori.
I know a lot of. If you go on eBay, they're saying there's a lot of counterfeit ones popping up. So you may want to stick to an official source. I know around me, I have a Micro Center. They've started selling them. They go for about $6.99, and you only get one set for the top and bottom, but it's well worth it. Anyway, I noticed right off the bat I had these scratches on my screen, and I'm like, oh my God, look at that. Because I was putting so much, it wasn't even pressure, but I guess it's just all it takes is that little bit of dust under your stylus to embed that scratch. So moving on from there, you know, I won that, and you go up and you can get these, each part of the island is situated almost like a suit from a playing card deck. You have club, heart, diamond, spade. And each section of the island is named as such. So you have club, heart, spade, diamond. And each section has its own set of mini-games. I think there's something like 30 mini-games in all.
36 total.
36, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I knew it was 30-something. But I think I've unlocked maybe about 12 or so, something like that. Maybe at least half of them. I've been really playing this game. I got really hooked into this game. So that's basically all there is to it. I mean, you run around and you can. It's almost got a little bit of an RPG element to it also. Because you can find there's one part where you actually go into a mine shaft. There's a little mountain on the side of the theme park, and you can go in there, and if you don't have the special helmet, it's got a little light on it, you're not going to be able to see. You can only see like a little circle around you where you're walking. So when you get this helmet, it brightens things up. And what you do is you go in your options, and you can flip around different outfits and different helmets and clothes. There's like a clown on a unicycle. I think no, he's not on a unicycle. What am I saying? But he's on. I don't know where I got the unicycle from. There's a clown in the game where if you speak to him while you're wearing a clown suit, he'll give you something extra. So while you're playing these mini games and things, you can find all this sorts of stuff, and you can unlock more items and so forth and so forth. But the main attraction is obviously these mini games. There's another one. Some of them are kind of getting a little bit of a feel from what is in New Super Mario Brothers or Mario 64, the little mini games involved in there. There's a trampoline one that was dead on like the Mario one, where you draw your trampoline.
Right.
And you bounce them up. It's like the one in WarioWare. Remember that game where you have the little blob dude and you got to propel him up to the moon through the clouds?
Right.
You draw.
Right.
Similar idea. You draw a little trampoline, Bomberman bounces up, and you have to get him to the top before the time runs out. All sorts of little cool games to play. There's one where you have to match what's the different bomb, which one's different. You have so much time to get as many of them as you can because each one you get gives you about 10 points. And if you do like 2 in a row, you'll get something like 30 points and so on. And you have to reach 300 points as your main goal, and you only have maybe 20 seconds to do it. So the faster you sit there and spot the differences between the two, it's something like out of Point Blank or the game we mentioned earlier, Magic Museum.
Right.
But anyway, I don't want to ruin all the little mini games, but they're a lot of fun. One other one I thought was kind of cool is you're balancing your little Bomberman on top of a boulder.
Yeah.
And you have to also reach the finish line, and there's a lot of reach the finish line games. And you have to take your stylus and turn it clockwise on top of the boulder as fast as you can to roll the boulder. And Bomberman's balancing himself on top. Now another boulder will be coming towards you, and you have to either slow down or jump while you're in mid-roll. And in order to jump, you simply lift your stylus off, and that indicates for the game to say, oh, it's time to jump. So while you're rolling and you lift the stylus off real quick, your little dude will just automatically jump to the next boulder. And they get smaller and smaller, which means it's a little harder to spin and spin. You have to be real accurate with your stylus. And you have to do this under a certain time limit. It's really challenging and really cool stuff. So for the most part, that's what this game is comprised of. I didn't really know that this game was just mini games, so I was really sucked into it because I love Wario. And especially Wario, and even some of the Rub Rabbit stuff. That was fun. So
yeah, I mean, it's
if
made
you're a fan
by the
of
same
either.
people that make Mario Party.
Right,
So
Hudson.
how do you expect the mini games to be? You know?
Hudson must be the king of party games because
absolutely
Nintendo's kind of contracted the game out to Hudson to create. Mario Party was always a Hudson game published by Nintendo. Nintendo does this all the time where they'll get other companies to to do games for them that may not. I mean, look at the company who did the Yoshi Island DS is a company called R-Toon. They're not part of Nintendo, but they contracted the game out for them to do it. The last game they did was Yoshi Tilt and Turvy?
Tops and
Turvy for the Game Boy Advance. But before that, they had done Blinks on the Xbox. So that tells you right there, obviously these people aren't associated with Nintendo. But Hudson's been around for ages. They really do know what they're doing. They're one of the best companies, I think, in gaming right now in terms of Japanese gaming. And they've also even did, I found this out recently, they did Fusion Frenzy and Fusion Frenzy 2 for the 360. So they've been getting out there.
Busy boys.
But and then, of course, you have the multiplayer aspects, which is really cool because all the little mini games you've unlocked throughout the game, you can go into the multiplayer and boot it up, and if I'm not mistaken, it's all single-car play.
It is.
So you have it's always a plus in my book.
Huge plus.
That's one of the best things about the DS overall. I love it.
Absolutely.
All the little mini games, you can play them against other people, single-car play, anything you've unlocked. So that's just a bigger bonus right there. And when you factor in, you've got, as Shane said, 36 games. That's a lot of play.
That's pretty decent.
That's a lot of fun. Some of these mini games are not as typical for these type of games. They're not all great, but for the most part, so far, I've had a lot of fun with all of them. They're really a lot. There's always something there you're going to find, something for everybody. So I think that's pretty much all I have to talk about. I think you get 3 or 4 little save positions that you can save your game. So if you have other people in the family that want to tackle the single-player mode on their own, there's plenty of save spots to say, here we go, have fun, start a new game. Once you get through the initial speech, there's a ton of text at the beginning of this game. Once you get through it, it's pretty much you're on your own, and you don't have to deal with it as much. So it's real easy to get into and just start playing. The controls,
you can.
Controls
I
are
was
really,
going to mention
really well
you can
done.
play up to 4 people local.
Oh, excellent! Yes.
Yeah. No Wi-Fi play on the mini games.
Unfortunately.
Just in case anybody was wondering. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No. It's just the controls are, I think, very, very well done. They're fantastic. The speed up, the sensitivity in terms of speeding up to run and walk. I mean, it's not really important in this game, but they really did pull it off pretty well. And, of course, the multiplayer aspects of it on the Wi-Fi, that is one of the big bonuses to this game because you have a full-fledged version of Bomberman on this cartridge. So you're basically getting 2 games for one. And I know Ubisoft originally imported or published the original Bomberman here in America back pretty much when the DS first came out. It was like in the first slew of titles released on the DS.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it plays rather well, but once you get this, there's no point in going back to that because you have the full functioning Wi-Fi abilities, which Shane spent some more time with that, so I figure you're going to talk a little bit about that and let us know what's going on.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, I never really understood the draw of Bomberman as a single-player game. And once I started playing it, because me and the guys at work, if you've listened to the show enough, you know that we're always playing the latest multiplayer games on the DS. We love to throw down. Couple times a day on our break, on our lunch hour, whatever, we'll go into the network room, and it's nice and cool in there, and it's quiet, and we'll all just link up and throw down. And of course, our Mario Kart is a huge one of the games we play a lot. We played a lot of Star Fox, we played a lot of Meteos when it came out, so we like to play these sort of games, and so we're always on the lookout. And Chris had mentioned that he was playing the crap out of this game. And he said that there was multiplayer. I'm going, okay, well, let me take a look at the multiplayer part of this. Now, I'm going to assume, just for a little while, that there are some people listening that have never, ever played Bomberman before. So I'm going to give you a quick synopsis on how the game plays. It's not mini games like Chris was talking about. This is actually classic Bomberman. How does this work? You play this little dude running around a top-down view of an arena. You have the ability to lay a bomb down. And after a few seconds, the bomb will go off, and initially it has a blast radius of 1 box on all the 4 directions, up, down, left, and right. You use the bomb to blow up these soft bricks. There's hard bricks on the screen that you can't blow up, but you blow up the soft bricks, and underneath the bricks occasionally are weapons or power-ups. Power-ups range anywhere from roller skates, which each time you get another roller skate, it makes you run a little bit faster. And trust me, in this game, you want speed. It also lets you pick up extra bombs. So initially, you can only have 1 bomb planted on the screen at a time. Pick up a couple extra bombs, and you'll be able to lay a trail of bombs behind you. Or you can more efficiently harvest those soft walls by laying down some strategically placed multiple bombs. You can also get a weapon that allows you to kick bombs, which is useful. If you get booted into a corner with a bomb locking you in, you can kick the bomb out of your way. And it wouldn't be complete if there wasn't a way to make your bombs more powerful. So there's a little fireball power-up that allows you to increase the power of your bombs. Instead of only shooting 1 box or 1 box length in any direction, it'll start increasing that. So it goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Eventually, you'll be able to blast your way all the way across the screen if you pick up enough of these things. Your goal, of course, in this multiplayer mode is to eliminate your competition. Now, you can play up to 4 people locally with your LAN play, along with up to 4 bots. You can fill in any of the players with bots. So if you don't have any friends laying around, you can hop on, put on 7 bots, and you can play a nice throwdown with bots on a couple of different levels of difficulty. They're very, very good, even on easy. It'll take a while before you can start beating them. Or you can hop on the Wi-Fi. This is also very, very cool. You can play up to 4 human players. Unfortunately, it suffers from what I call the Mario Kart effect, which means it will sit there and search for 4 players until it times out, at which point in time, any of the remaining players that aren't in, let's say you and you get 1 or 2 other people hop on, the 4th player still isn't there. After a while, it'll time out. They'll put a bot in that spot and throw 4 more bots on the screen. So there's always going to be 8 players in the Wi-Fi. It's just a matter of how many humans are you going to play.
It really is. That you can't just cut it.
It pisses me off. Tons of other games let you do that. You have enough players, cut off. And you can even do that in the LAN game. If the 2 of you are sitting there and you guys want to play, you hop on, and as soon as he connects, there's a cutoff button. You push the button, you're playing.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
No, I think most of the local Wi-Fi play games have a cutoff button too.
And that makes sense, right? Because, there's not going to, two more guys aren't going to magically show up in the room.
I mean, even Metroid Pinball.
Why can't we do that in Wi-Fi?
I don't get it either. It seems like it would make so much more sense and be a lot more functional in the Wi-Fi mode online because you don't know who's going to maybe pop in or not. I mean, there could be like nobody online, So, and you already have your pals, so why do you have to wait around? It's crazy.
As usual, the Wi-Fi requires that you exchange friend codes. And you're able to play with friends only on the Wi-Fi, rivals, which will try to match-make your skill level against other people in your skill range. You can play in your region or in your country, or you can just play anybody worldwide. Now, despite the fact that the game is older, I rarely have trouble finding at least a couple of human opponents to play with. Of course, they're a lot better than I am, but I'm getting better. So the object of the game, as I mentioned before, is to eliminate your opponents one at a time. Now, this is what's really cool about the multiplayer. There's 20 different arenas to play in. And eliminating your opponent is only one type of play. It's the majority. It's the major gameplay. But they also have a Capture the Crown multiplay, where the first person to get to the crown wins the trophy. You also have ones where you try to secure a certain area of the screen as yours. So you can kind of claim parts of the screen for yourself, and the person who ends up having the most at the end wins. You can set up options out the yin-yang on this game. How long do you want to play? How many trophies to play till? Whether or not there's a revenge mode, which I haven't explored fully. There are tons and tons and tons of modifications. For any of you old school gamers, I have to throw a little old school speak in here, that played the original Space War, where you could type in all these different codes to give yourself different environmentals. The sun has more gravity. You bounce off the sides
almost
of the walls.
Almost like a dip switch kind of thing?
It's like dip switches, exactly. Perfect example.
Thank you.
So you have tons and tons of these things that you can choose from. There's a sudden death mode where at the end of the level, this sucks. If you get down to 30 seconds, you get to hurry up. And if there's still more than one player, of course, alive. And what happens is the screen starts filling up from the bottom to the top with hard bricks. And if you're caught in the wake, you're killed. But it will fill to the top of the screen just in time for it to be 0 seconds left on the clock. So come 30 seconds, everybody's going to die. It's just a matter of what order you get to die in. Whoever's left standing, of course, wins. There are also arenas that have different challenges. For example, the top and bottom screens of the arena are connected with tunnels. Some of the arenas have less tunnels, which makes it, of course, harder and harder to get to a tunnel and get to the other screen without somebody trapping you in with a bomb. There's also arenas that start you off with full power. That's pretty damn cool. You have full speed, full bomb load, and full bomb potency right from the beginning, which makes the entire game a huge, explosive firework fest. Truly cool. If you don't want to play for 3 minutes, trust me, if you play on that arena, it will be over in less than 3 minutes. The computer opponents, as I said, are very well done. They're very good. Even on easy, they very rarely will fall into the common traps that we as humans fall into. There's all sorts of strategies involved. Whether your strategy is to daisy chain bombs, whether your strategy is to block one of the other opponents in with a bomb set, whether you catch him hiding in the tunnels, there's all sorts of possibilities. The game is very fast, very frantic, and there's not an element of greed, unfortunately, which is my favorite part of multiplayer games is greed.
Yeah, we know you love the greed factor.
I love the greed factor. Not a lot of greed factor here, other than the fact that you, of course, want to top off your weapons as soon as possible. The faster you are, the faster you're going to be able to move around and capture your enemy with bombs. It's worth noting that in addition to all these great power-ups, there's also power-downs. For every power-up that there is, except for the kicking method, the kicking power-up, every power-up has a negative one, an inverted power-up, if you will, the power-down, so that you can decrease your speed. You can decrease the number of bombs you can carry. And a lot of people are like, well, why would you ever want to do that? Well, you wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that you won't accidentally get these things. Right. Sometimes you have to go from A to B, and in your way is a power down.
And you have no way to get around it, so
the only thing you can do is blow them up.
Right.
So there's all sorts of strategies involved with that. When one of the players die, part of the soft bricks are converted. They're destroyed automatically, basically giving up whatever powers that they had kind of get scattered along the screen. You know, it's sort of like, what's another game that does that? When you die, all of your power-ups.
Oh, well, there's a lot of, like, shooters out there I know that do it.
Yeah,
your
like
ship
Raiden
explodes.
and stuff like that.
Exactly.
When you die, all of your power-ups start floating
all your
around
little
the screen.
stuff flies around. You're anxious to come back and just suck it all back down.
Yeah, that's basically what happens when you die. You don't get to come back, though. When you die, all of your power-ups and whatnot.
Or Gauntlet.
Yeah, it's like Gauntlet, yeah.
Shrewdness in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice, very nice. Green Warrior is about to die. Anyway, so suffice to say that the mini games obviously are great. They're a lot of fun. If you're a mini game whore, you got to have it. Now, let's say you don't care about mini games. You're a big Bomberman fan. You own the original Bomberman. Is it worth moving up to get this version of Bomberman? If you can live without Wi-Fi, you're good to go. But if you really want to throw down against humans at any time, day or night, you're going to have to pick this one up. Now, the downside of this title, kind of getting into a wrap-up here, the downside of the title is it is a $34.99 title.
Yes,
and I cannot find it any cheaper anywhere. I've checked eBay, I've checked Target, I've checked everywhere, and guess what? You ain't going to find it used either.
It's not a GameStop EB $35 either, which means you're going to find it everywhere else for $29. I mean, it seems like it's $35 everywhere. It seems to
everywhere.
Genuine retail price, which shocks me that it's not $40 at the GameStop.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised GameStop didn't mark it up.
Now, let me ask you this real quick before I forget.
Yeah.
Pretty, in terms of performance, I've heard there was some lagging.
Oh, when you play online?
Yes.
I've noticed that it is very sensitive to your location, to your locale in regards to your Wi-Fi point. Mm-hmm. For example, I'm a crapper game player. I like to sit on the crapper and play video games. As most of us really do, but very few people will actually admit to it. I was on the toilet, and I can play Clubhouse. I can play tons of games on the toilet. Bomberman, I only get like 1 or 2 bars, and yeah, I was getting a lot of lag. I actually had to move in till I was within 20, 30 feet of my router in order to get a good connection. That's a very good point. I don't know how it would work in, say, a public Wi-Fi spot like McDonald's. Mm-hmm. But I know that I had to get fairly close to my router to not experience lag. Now, once I got close enough, no more lag. It's not like you're going to lag some all the time. You definitely need a full strength meter to play the game properly. And there's nothing worse than a game that's timing critical to have lag. You know, if it's your turn to play a card, the lag's not a big deal. When you're like fighting against a dude dropping 500 bombs around you.
Yeah, because this is nonstop gameplay.
Oh, yeah. You don't have any time to breathe in this game.
No.
So, I'd say it's definitely worth the $35, especially if you can get as much out of it, as we have. In other words, you like both the mini games and the full game.
Well, yeah, it's basically 2 games in one.
Oh, yeah, it's really a no-brainer.
The only question is, if you have the original Bomberman, if it's worth it to you to get this, as Shane said, for the Wi-Fi ability. But on the other hand, yeah, the single-player adventure seems to be pretty meaty. I mean, it's got a lot going on. I've been hooked on it for a couple of days, on and off. It's a great game just to pick up, at a doctor's office or something, and play a few rounds of whatever mini games. And you can always go back and I think try to get your high score or even higher. You can always
there's an attraction mode where it's sort of like a score mode where once you've unlocked the attraction in the main game, you can go back and play it all you want.
Which allows you to also play a multiplayer, as we said. So
which is very nice.
Local multiplayer anyway.
There's never enough local area networking play for mini games. I mean, we played the crap out of the new Super Mario Brothers mini games. My wife, my daughter, and I just sat around the living room and we just threw down.
That's cool.
Like every night. It was great.
We'll get a full-fledged Mario Party eventually.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's a given. I think I would not be surprised to see Mario Party 8 and the DS version of Mario Party come out at the same time.
Yeah, usually
right near each other.
Usually that's how it works. Like right now, they've got the Wii version coming out, so that means maybe they'll be working on the DS version next. It's kind of like everybody's thinking, hopefully, with the Fire Emblem series. Like, there's a Wii version being worked on now. So maybe after that, we'll finally get a DS version, I'm hoping, because I'd really love to try that on the DS.
That'd be way cool.
But, so you're giving this a high stylus then?
Oh, yeah, stylus up. It's worthwhile.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'd have to agree with you. I give it a high stylus. what's great is once I get done with the single-player game, I'll probably just, it's going to be great because then you can go on and you still have the single-player or the multiplayer Bomberman aspects that you can play online. So you have two things going on here. You have a whole lot of, as IGN would call, lasting appeal. I mean, it's huge. So
absolutely,
once you finished it, even though the only drawback is and this isn't something necessarily drawback for me, is as long as you can accept that the graphics aren't like going to blow you away. I mean, there's no 3D involved here or anything. It's all 2D graphics. They're pretty simplistic. It's nothing heavy duty, and I don't think it was done because of the DS. I mean, it doesn't feel like a GBA leftover because in this case it's suiting the style of the game. The game was always very simple in design. So they kind of just followed suit with that. I don't know if you noticed on the Xbox, they released an updated version of Bomberman where all the characters look like they stepped out of Unreal Tournament. The game's failed miserably. I mean,
of course.
Even the guys at Hudson were kind of thinking, what is going on with Hudson? Why are we putting this game out?
Right.
It was horrible. It was all 3D. Everything was like, mature, in that everything was gritty and dark and explosive, and nobody wanted that. Everybody wants the simplistic design of Bomberman. That's what they, especially long-term fans, have grown up with over the years,
And let's be honest. I mean, it's not Polarium graphics.
Oh no!
They're very clean.
That's the thing. They're very clean, but they're very simplistic. I mean, they look good.
They're GBA style graphics. Let's be honest.
Right, but I'm saying though, the game doesn't feel like a game that started out on the GBA. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Something like Rocket Slime did.
It feels like a PlayStation, Dreamcast era type of game. It feels
like a PlayStation. It suits the DS's abilities. I mean, like I said, it's all stylus play, unless you get to the multiplayer. The multiplayer's D-pad. But,
the multiplayer's all D-pad, no stylus. Don't worry, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want people thinking that they had to play Bomberman with a stylus,
the
action part. Yeah,
but the mini games are very situated around the stylus, and otherwise the technology, sure. I mean, you probably could have reproduced them on the GBA, but overall, I think it's very nice looking. I think I've been having a lot of fun with it. Any game that hooks me to the point where I'm sitting there playing it for an hour. Yeah. Once I'm done that hour and I can't put it down, and I turn and say, "Dang man, I don't want to stop playing, but I got other things to do," that tells me that it's a good game, at least for me. So it's getting a stylus up.
And for me, any game that we can add to our regular throwdown sessions at work.
Oh yeah,
that's a winner.
It's limitless gameplay. I mean, you could be playing this, for as long as you could. I mean, possibly playing it. I mean, I dare say it may be the ultimate version, a greatest hits version of the game, because you got everything.
We're seeing a lot of that on the DS.
Right.
We're seeing a lot of the greatest hits versions. Like the Mario Kart, the Tetris.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Nintendo goes back, and Nintendo developers, I should say, they go back and say, look, we've hoarded this IP forever. Now, we've learned a lot of things. We learned what didn't work in Double Dash. We learned what didn't work in Mario 64. We learned what did work here. And they take them and they say, for the DS, we're going to create the ultimate version of Bomberman. We're going to create the ultimate version of Mario Kart. And for a lot of times they're successful.
Let's take the best aspects of each of those games and put them all in one new game. Keep everything everybody, loved about the prior games, and get rid of the things that people didn't like. I think Double Dash, for instance, a lot of people did not like the double-player aspect of it. They wanted to go back to the core roots of the game, which were established in the Super Nintendo version for the most part. I mean, they wanted that. So, something like this is... it's still hardcore old-style Bomberman. I mean, there's really nothing added, but, throwing in the fact that you can do 8 players local, and also do a 4-player online match, that right there just throws it up to that next tier up, because even...
it makes it part of that great
even in the older Bombermans, on the older systems, you were kind of limited to the amount of players you were able to play. Or... even if you did have something like the PlayStation version or something, you'd still probably have to involve the multi-tap, which was an extra buy, and then you have to get the controllers and then get everybody in the same room, which, you'd have to do with the Nintendo version if you want to play local multiplayer, but at the same time, you need one cartridge and everybody just brings their DS, and you sit anywhere in the room, and you have your own view of the game. That's fantastic.
I love it.
So, yes, it's a good game, and I highly recommend you check it out. The price is a little bit obscene. Maybe hopefully it'll come down a little more. I mean, if you could find this for something like $20, so it's an instant buy. I mean, maybe later on down the road.
Good luck. Like I said, I'd scour it around a lot before I paid
It's
retail.
a fairly recent game, though. It came out in November, so, it's still relatively new.
You might get lucky.
So bringing that one out of the vault, because, in the world of the Internet, November's old, so.
That's true. You're right. November's like last year.
Neolithic.
Next up, Neolithic. So we've got another review for you. I think this one's going to be considerably shorter. Picross or Picross or Picross or however you want to pronounce it. Japanese import.
Published Nintendo.
Do you want to give them the mechanics?
It's a little tough to describe. It's one of those games that, it's not even limited to video games. It sounds like it's kind of a paper. It's sort of like in there with crossword puzzles and Sudoku, and it's a Japanese created puzzle game that was originally out on the Game Boy. The original Game Boy, it was called Mario Picross. It was published by Nintendo and created by a company called Jupiter, which I've not heard of outside of these games, Yeah,
they just put out a DS game, too. I remember seeing the logo.
Well, that was in the Picross.
Yes.
I mean, maybe I don't know if you're thinking of that.
Maybe
now I got to look it up
and
right. See if they make any other games. But
yeah.
Yes, the DS incarnation of it just came out in Japan about maybe just under a month ago. And I know I was excited when I saw it. This is another case of where Nintendo just brings out a game and you don't even know about it. There's like no word of mouth whatsoever. Remember last year when Tetris came out and it was like January and all of a sudden they said Tetris DS is coming in March and everybody's like, whoa, where'd that come from? You know what I mean? Like just out of nowhere this game comes out. So
holy crap.
Like there was no word at all. I mean, normally a lot of games you hear about and it's like, oh, it'll be out by the end of the year. Like a year from now. But in this case, it was the difference of like it's coming out in 2 months, and you're thinking, where have they hidden this game all this time? So something sort of like has happened with Picross DS in that I'd not known this was coming out. Everybody was hoping Nintendo would hopefully reinvigorate the series and bring out another Mario Picross. It was an old cult classic, I guess. I mean, cult favorite anyway, on the original Game Boy. They brought one edition of it over to the original Game Boy, and I think for the most part it bombed. But now the DS one came out, and I think it's starting to hopefully get a little more attention. Now, I'm hoping they bring it to the U.S. It's a fun little title. Up to this point, there have been other Picross released games on the DS from other companies, because Nintendo doesn't necessarily own the game, but they've done a really good version of it in the old Game Boy editions. And also, you include that Nintendo flair to it, much like Tetris, had Nintendo characters all over, and it kind of gives you that retro feel, that makes you even get into the game even more. Just saying, oh, look at this, that's the little professor from Gyromite, bounced across the screen. And Mario Picross is a similar idea in that some of the pictures you would form from playing the puzzle, which I'll get to in a moment, would be very Nintendo oriented and give off a retro feel. Now, the basic rules to Picross, I'm sure a lot of people don't know what the heck this is. The best way to think of it, to not get too complicated, is Sudoku. Sudoku's been like a big hit now for the last couple of years, ever since it came out. For the majority of the people, it's just gotten a lot more popular, even though it's been out for a while. It's almost like a reverse engineered version of Sudoku in that you have a grid. It's a big grid of whatever. It can go from 20 by 20. It can go 15 by 15, 10 by 10. It depends on the level of difficulty. And outside the grid, each part of the grid, the line that goes off the grid, has a string of numbers attached to it. It could be something like 1, 2, 5, 2, or 1, 1, 1, 1. Now, anytime a number is presented next to the grid, there's a space in between each number, which means there's at least a gap between that number. So if you have a 2 and then a 1, you go over to the grid, that means you have to tap in or color in or box in 2 of that number, like 1, 2, and then that means there's a space to the next number, which would be like a 1 or something. It's very difficult to explain. I'll see if I can get a link up there, maybe to the Wikipedia entry, because it does a pretty good it's a pretty good example of how it plays. It's really hard to describe how to talk it through. It's easier to show somebody how to play it.
The puzzle element of this game comes from mostly through trial and error, trial and elimination. Basically, the idea is that you start off with higher numbers. Let's say that you have a 10 by 10 grid, and one of the rows is a 6. By just knowing that, you can count 6 over from both sides, and no matter where you put the 6, at least the 2 center boxes are going to be filled in. No matter if you started from the right or the left, the 2 middle boxes on that grid are going to be filled in. Guaranteed.
Right.
So you start off with the high numbers, with the very plainly obvious ones, and as you start filling them in and completing rows, you close off the rest of the rows. You've met the 1, 1, 2, 1 number set. So all the rest of them are X'd out. So you can go ahead and X those out. So by doing this process of elimination, eventually you'll get to a point to where the next line of numbers makes sense. You're going, okay, I know that this has to be this can't be that, et cetera, and you'll go through, and again, like Chris said, it's really hard to explain. And even more difficult is learning some of the higher elements of the game. Just like any great puzzle game, there's a really easy level of it, and then as it gets harder and harder, there's more and more things that you have to...
It's all about deduction. You have to deduce where a particular box needs to be checked in.
Or where a box can't be checked
Right.
in.
And you can actually put a place setter in there, an empty place setter, to remind yourself of where you shouldn't be boxing something in.
Yeah.
Much like in Sudoku on Brain Age, where you can draw a tiny little number to kind of remind yourself later that's where that number could go in theory. But it's a similar idea here. Now, you also have the numbers coming down vertically and horizontally. So you're also using the numbers vertically to kind of tell yourself, well, if I drew 3 dots here and there's another 3 coming down, that one of those dots and the ones going horizontal are a part of that 3.
Yeah, that's not going to work out.
Right. So, the best way to describe this, and I just realized this, is most people have, or have at least tried, a Windows OS system. Okay. So, and what is one of the free games involved in Windows other than Solitaire? Exactly. It's very similar to Minesweeper in a way. It's kind of got a Minesweeper feel to it.
It does. Now that you say that, I totally see Minesweeper in it.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't be surprised if Minesweeper didn't steal P-Cross's idea and turn it.
I don't know how long P-Cross has been around. I mean, I think it's. I don't know the whole history, but it does look like it came out of Japan. And I'm going to put down a link here because there is a history thing here, and it mentions 1987 on how this Japanese graphics editor won this competition. And I think the concept, it looks like, of this, it's called, from this, the concept of paint-by-numbers and picture-forming logic puzzles was born. So it does look like it's been around for at least 20 years now.
Yeah.
And the whole point of this game is, once you've boxed in all these little boxes, it's not gonna look like much of anything. It's just gonna be a massive little pixels almost. But then when the puzzle is finished and you've completed it, the game zooms out rather, and you can see that it forms a little picture. Now, as you're doing this, of course, you're saying to yourself, well, why can't I just go and just color in everything? I mean, I could easily just say, I'm just going to block all this stuff in, and then I'll find something. Well, you're timed. There's a timer that goes down. So as you're playing it, the longer you play, the timer's going up. Now, each of these little levels are oriented in terms of a theme. The first level is based around fruit or vegetables. I think it's fruit.
Yeah.
So every little puzzle, there's I think 5 sets of 10 originally, and I believe you can unlock more because there are about 100 puzzles in this game. So there are some unlockables, and as you go along, they get bigger and heavier and more excruciatingly hard to solve. The first set, I believe, are 10 by 10. So that's a pretty simple way to get going. The game gives you the option to fill in some blocks for you. So this little thing will back and forth like the Wheel of Fortune wheel, going back and forth, and you can stop it on a particular row, and it'll fill them in for you. It'll at least get you started a little bit. Because sometimes there's like an area of where you'll get a number 1, 1, 1, and you'll have a grid of like 15 by 15, and you can only fill in 1, 1, 4 blocks total, and it can be kind of hard to say, oh man, where am I going to start? But meanwhile, the timer's going down, and I found that if you don't complete the puzzle within the hour, you don't get the little picture when you solve the puzzle. It doesn't animate and color up and everything.
Yeah, you are rewarded.
You solved it, but you're not rewarded. Yes.
Right.
So that's kind of a downer. Now, anytime you make a mistake, it adds minutes to your counter. So the first time you make a mistake, I think it adds like 2 minutes. The second time you make a mistake, it adds like, I think, something like 10 minutes, and so on and so on.
It's like doubles. It's like 2, 4, 8.
Exactly.
And I don't think I've gotten past 8.
Yeah, right. I mean, I tend to get mine done before the hour mark. So basically, you're giving yourself 5 mistakes before you reach the hour mark. Once you've hit that 5th mistake, you're kind of screwed because you're going past the hour mark. And if you're like me, OCD, you have to see your rewarded puzzle.
Absolutely.
Plus, the thing is, it sucks in that you don't get you're not getting a demerit for screwing up. I mean, in the old Mario P-Cross, you only had 30 minutes to solve each puzzle, and the clock counted down. So anytime you make a mistake, it would add to the clock. And once that 30-minute hit mark came along, you're screwed. It was the end of the puzzle. So in this, it's going the opposite. It's starting low and going up. I mean, you could be sitting here solving it all day. That's the one drawback, I think, from the old games on the old Game Boy system. I mean, I really think they should have kept that. I'm almost to the point now where if I didn't do this, I could be just playing it all day without any, I mean, I could be sitting here theoretically playing like a 4-hour puzzle, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to get that reward of an animated graphics and to show that I did something, I performed well. So for me, myself, I give myself a 5-mistake limitation because
I only give myself 3. You're generous.
Well, because I think more or less when you get 5 mistakes, you're past the hour mark.
Right, exactly.
Means you're not getting the reward. So there you have it. Now, the game's in Japanese, so I haven't really been able to go through and figure out a lot of the features to this game. I do know it has Wi-Fi play, so you can compete with other people, and I think even share your own puzzles. You can create your own customized P-Cross puzzles.
Yeah. And I've actually got the list in front of us here. I did some research while you were jabbing. And, yes, you have your standard P-Cross, and you're penalized for your time difficulties.
Yes.
You have a daily P-Cross, which you play 5 P-Cross puzzles a day.
Right,
and it keeps track of your progress.
It's like a random puzzle. Exactly.
Yep. You've got a My P-Cross where you can design your own P-Cross puzzles and draw them on the grid. When you're done, you can play your puzzles or send them to other people via Wi-Fi. And you have Competition P-Cross where you play against others. You can choose to use a single card to play multiplayer, multi-card multiplayer, or you can play online, of course, with other people via the Wi-Fi connection.
Nice. And
but
also,
it's not very easy to. It's not easy to figure out everything.
Well, there are some like if you go to something like GameFAQs.com.
Yeah.
They've already got a listing pretty much. Somebody's already translated the main menu and everything. It's very simple to get through. There's simple little things like, are you left or right-handed? Do you want the music on or off? You can even turn off the themes. Like if you're playing the fruit theme, there's some color involved. If you're playing the animal theme, you're getting a more animal-looking. It's got little themes, and then you can switch it off to the default theme. So there's little options like that. One other cool thing is you can stop a game in mid-pause. Go back and come back and resume it later, much like you can with Sudoku on the Brain Age. So that's pretty cool.
Also worth noting, you can download additional packs.
That was the next thing I was going to say. You can also download the additional packs. Already there are 2 packs available. And the first pack they released were classic puzzles from the original Mario P-Cross. And what's really cool is they include the music from the old game. It's really neat. Yeah, it's like an updated version of the same tune. So
that's way cool.
It's not as tinny, but it sounds just exactly like it. And even if you import this and bring it over to the U.S., you can still access that Wi-Fi and download them. It doesn't matter if you're in Japan or not. You can still get access. And even though it's only been out for a few weeks, they've already added the 2 packs. So I think there's good stuff. Yeah, there's multiple. There's already 30 puzzles right there that you've downloaded.
I'm jonesing for a U.S. release.
I think it would be perfect for the touch generation thing. If they're still doing
I think it's a no-brainer. I don't know if
they're still continuing the whole touch generation vibe or not. I bet they are. I think EBA, Elite Beat Agents, had the touch generation, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess they still are continuing. I think this would be perfect for it. It's a great pick-up-and-play puzzle game.
They'll call it something different, though. They'll call it...
No, I don't think so, because the original one that came out here in the Game Boy was called Mario's P-Cross.
Yeah, so that's cool.
I'm thinking.
I'll bet they'll call it paint by numbers or something.
Maybe, but I think it would throw a lot of people off because I think a lot of people do know about P-Cross. It does seem to have like its own little cult following, at least from what I can tell on the internet. But same way with Sudoku. I mean, I go to the bookstores and I see various Sudoku type puzzle offshoots. What's the other one? Kukuro or something? I don't know.
Yeah, Kukuri or whatever.
I mean, I never heard of that, but you still see that out there, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was originally shunning Sudoku because I thought it was math related. I didn't know any better, you know?
Yeah, I don't do math when I'm having fun.
But
a couple of things that I've determined here for also to help round this out. You were wondering what other things Jupiter has done. They've basically exclusively stuck to Nintendo. They've made stuff all the way from the Game Boy all the way to the DS, including the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and the Super NES. They feature things such as Disney's Party, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, Mario No Super P-Cross for the SNES.
SNES, right.
Yep, and of course Mario P-Cross, P-Cross DS, and they were also responsible, and this is where I must have seen it before, for the Pokemon Pinball series. So
really?
There you have that.
Oh, you know what? You're right. That is correct. I remember that now.
I know I'm correct.
I mean, I
remember
remember,
the list.
but I remember I used to love the Pokemon Pinball. I could care less about Pokemon, to be honest, but the
Pokemon Pinball.
The Pokemon Pinball was a lot of fun, and now you mention it, I do remember their name at the logo. Because that's one of those games where you had to sit and stare at the logo for a few seconds. You know, you couldn't skip it. You know, you had to know who made the game before you could.
Now, also worth mentioning for those of you who are not Japanese friendly, you don't feel like doing the big Japanese import, and you're looking for something a little more English friendly. There is a version of P-Cross DS available for homebrew people. In other words, if you've got a flash card, it's a pretty good version too.
Yes.
One of the things I think it didn't do was notify you when you made a mistake, and that's something I've got to have now. I've been totally spoiled by brain age.
See, that's exactly why that's one of the drawbacks to this P-Cross DS, and that it doesn't. You don't really, other than that finishing picture, you don't really get any kind of knockback. Like I have to have the mistakes. We've already gone over this, but I have to have
it turned on.
I have to know if I have a mistake, and I want to be limited like that because I'd like the challenge.
Right. The other option that you have is there's another version. It's not called P-Cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's called it's not called Paint by Numbers either. They call it something else, but it's part of the Essential Sudoku DS package.
Mm-hmm.
From the D3 publisher, and it's available over in Europe right now. It's not available here yet. But that contains not only Sudoku, but it also has a couple of other variations, along with, strangely enough, P-Cross.
Right.
And again, it does not have a full featured set. In other words, you don't get the notification and things like that, which kind of killed it for me.
Right, and that's the reason why I thought P-Cross DS would be the game to review because
Absolutely.
I mean, it's easily probably the best of the P-Cross games I played on the DS so far. I played a couple of other ones, including one from Hudson, who put out a part of their. I'm always getting them mixed up with the other. What is it? The Simple series. It's called Illus Magic. Or Illus Logic rather. It's another. It's not a bad game at all, and I've been having some fun with that as well, but. The way the P-Cross DS is set up, Nintendo just is always good at very polished, very easy to get into. Everything is just simple. Everything's clean, and it's very easy to intuitive, and that's why I'm really recommending the Jupiter version that Nintendo's publishing because it's very well done. They've made these games before, and obviously know what they're doing. The fact that it unlocks a lot of other things. I mean, even if it's in Japanese, I can still understand what's going on. I mean, because normally when you pause a game, what are the options that are given to you when you pause a game? Do you want to quit, yes or no? I mean, you don't need to know Japanese to know that that's saying yes or no, Or do you want to save the game for later? There's also the other thing that's making me recommend this is that there's already translations online for the menus, so it's very easy. Somebody, one of the guys in the forums even pasted it in the official P-Cross DS thread that we have. So if you do import the game, check out the thread if you do a search on the forum. And that's how I actually was able to get on and download the bonus packs because you can go through the Wi-Fi settings because some of the menus get a little crazy. But if you just follow it through, it's fairly simple. Now, I'm also going to include in our links, be sure to check out the links function of this for this show to get a listing of all the links and things we've discussed in the show because there's something online here. It's a nice little Flash enabled P-Cross that if people want to check it out, it's very simple to figure out, and they even tell you how to play. It's called Armor P-Cross, and it's from ArmorGames.com. There's not a lot of spam or anything. It seems like a pretty cool little site. So I'm going to put that on the links also. That maybe if people want to get an idea of how this game's played for free, it's very clean and well done. So I'm going to include that in the links. Check that out.
Very cool.
So what do you think? Overall, what do you think is a good review rating for this game?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
I'm inclined. The only reason I'm inclined to give it a middle stylus instead of an upper stylus is the fact that it's in Japanese, and I don't feel that I'm maximizing my purchase.
Right.
Even having the FAQ and all that other stuff. For this import version, I'm going to give it a middle stylus, only because, well, it's great and it's fun. I hate having to have a translation guide when I play a game.
Right.
And there are, as you said, a couple of things that could have been maybe done just a tad better, counting down your time instead of counting up. It would have been cool to have a couple of more little features in there. Overall, great game. However, if you're not really jonesing for the ultimate P-Cross, you may hang out and see if they bring it over for the touch generation line.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I think this is a great game. I just can't solidly up stylus recommend it. I'm not saying that it's a bad game at all. It really isn't. It's fantastic. It's kind of hard to judge that because, like you said, there's Japanese involved, and a lot of people may or may not like this game. I just love puzzle games on the DS. I'm always willing to give them a shot, and I'm basing this game based on the old Mario P-Cross. And I think the one thing that really bothered me was the whole time aspect that Shane just said, and that's discussed earlier. You're not really penalized for your mistakes, and I think that's a really important aspect to the game. So, otherwise, I would highly, recommend if you're going to pick it up to wait a little bit longer just to see if maybe they do eventually release it in the U.S. I think it's amazing that, like I said earlier, the Magikai Museum game is even making it over here, and that's been out for a year in Japan. So, as an import game goes, if you do see this for something like, and that's the other thing, it's an expensive import. I think it's something like $40+. If you see it on sale for like $19.99 or something, I would definitely import it. It's a solid little game. It's very polished, very well done. But for the money, you're probably not going to get a lot out of it based on the language barrier. Because I'm sure some of the Wi-Fi stuff is probably amazing. You can download the extra packs. Once you're in the game, you're going to have a lot of fun because the Japanese isn't involved, so it's easy to play. It's just one of those games that you're going to have to see for yourself if you're really going to be into it or not. And that's why I'm going to try to include this link in our link segment of the show, because if you like what you played in this little web demo, you're probably going to like playing this. But
and don't forget, if you do have homebrew capability,
check out the
definitely
free one.
Check out the free version. That'll definitely give you a feel.
And I think the guy
who
did that even said that he took a lot of the puzzles from the original Mario P-Cross and incorporated them into it. So that's a bonus right there. But yeah, I'm going to give it a middle stylus. It's recommended, but I'm not recommending it highly as I would like something like Bomberman Land,
Yeah, Bomberman Land is just way too cool.
It's a good game.
It's hard to have him in the same
review.
I thought it'd be cool to
review an import game. We haven't had an import game in a while, so this is new.
Yeah, we haven't done that in a long time.
I kind of knew going into it how P-Cross works, and I thought we'd share that. So anyway, keep an eye out for more import reviews, hopefully down the pike. We got styluses and 2 high styluses for this show.
Now that we both Chris and I have the R4 cartridge for the flash card for the DS, we thought it'd be a good time because a lot of people are really getting into homebrew. A lot of people have understood what we mean by not carrying a bunch of carts around with you. So we're trying to cover more and more of this type of equipment so that people get the best value for their money, because homebrew and flash cards are such a moving target on the DS and the Game Boy Advance systems. It was just so hard to know what to get because the market's flooded with them. And so we thought we'd take a few minutes to tell you why The R4 is our personal choice for flash cards, at least for today. You never know what might come out tomorrow.
See, that's what scares me because every time I turn around, it's, oh, you gotta get this. You gotta get this one. Oh no, this one's great. Oh, this one. Of course, you gotta get this. And Shane was always saying, you gotta get this one. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm perfectly happy with my Supercard Lite, And all these times, because it's been about, 3 cards? You get the, what were some of the ones?
I've been through a lot of them, dude. I did the Supercard SD, the Supercard Mini, the Supercard Lite. I did the DS Link. I did the X9 Ninja Pass. Now I'm up to the R4. And,
right.
especially the last
R4.
I've actually done, and we'll give you a link to this as well. Sorry, the cat just jumped up and scratched the crap out of me. I love when she does that. We'll give you a link to this too. This is my review, my own textual review of what I call the top entries into the slot 1 cards.
Would you say it was the cream of the crop?
It's the cream of the crop of the slot 1 cards, and I review them all, including the R4. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give Chris a quick link to that so we can add it to our link list.
Nice.
So when it comes to flash cards, there is really sort of a trifecta of importance. There are 3 things that are the most important that you have to deal with in terms of flash cards. One is how easy is it to use? What sort of game compatibility does it have? In other words, does it play commercial games properly? And before we continue, I just want to go on record that we both own so many Nintendo DS cartridges that it's sick. I think I just crossed 100 cartridges.
Yeah, you're worse than I am.
I'm a lot worse. The purpose of discussing Nintendo DS compatibility on these things is not to foster piracy, because we want the DS to live a long time. It's to help you get your collection under wraps and be able to take it with you without losing these little tiny cards, which, it's insane. I've lost 2 of them already in the lifespan since I've been in the DS, and that pisses me off. I've had to rebuy 2 games because they're so small, they're so easy to lose. So that's the purpose of discussing game compatibility. And finally, what's its compatibility with the majority of the homebrew market? Because that's kind of where you can kind of say, well, I'm using my DS and my flash card for legal purposes. But that aside, there's a lot of great homebrew things out there that you want to get in on. Like we talked about earlier, the iPod emulator, right? There's tons of stuff. There's PDA software. There's media players. There's all sorts of stuff. So there's tons of reasons why you might want to legitimately own one of these type of cards. What'd you say, Chris?
Oh, no, I said nothing.
You said nothing.
No.
So let's talk about how the R4 falls into place here. First of all, there's the ease of use. Ease of use comes in 2 different forms. How you get the stuff on the card, and then how you use the card.
This is the part I like.
Yeah, this is the part that Chris likes, because Chris is a no-nonsense kind of user. If Chris is at all inconvenienced, he just won't do it. Chris is like that, and that's cool. It's good to have standards. Me, I don't care if I have to fiddle around with it. As long as the damn thing does what I want it to do eventually, it doesn't piss me off. Chris, it pisses off. So we've got some interesting views here. The Supercard line, for example, the Supercard SD, the stuff that you're going to see really common if you go do Google searches. These cards are slot 2 devices, and as such, they plug into the GBA slot. And if you think about this logically, it doesn't make any sense that a Nintendo DS game can run from the GBA slot. It doesn't make good sense. Why? Because inside the game code, and I'm going to try not to get too technical here, inside the game code are little routines that let you load and save games and information to the card. So inside your little Nintendo DS card, if you take out a card right now and look at it, a regular old Nintendo DS cartridge, inside that cartridge is a piece of code that actually runs the game, and inside of there's some save area that lets you save to non-volatile memory. You can save game slot 1, game slot 2. I save all my puppy statistics, blah blah blah. So there's a save game area. Well, if you were to take the code off of that cartridge and put it on into a slot 2 device, it's going to say, hey, I need to write to the Nintendo DS save spot. And it's going to try to write to the Nintendo DS save area on the card. Well, a slot 2 device doesn't have that. So somebody clever, far more clever than me, came up with a methodology where it's like, hey, what if we go into the code and say anytime you want to read or write from the Nintendo DS save area, instead you're going to read and write to this card, the slot 2 card. So that's known as patching. Let's say that you have a game like Mario Kart. Okay, so you obtain, and I'm not going to tell you how, you obtain a copy of Mario Kart because you can't dump it off your own cartridge. But, okay, you own the cartridge. You feel clear to go hit Google and find a copy of Mario Kart that you can play on your slot 2 flash device.
Heck, in some cases, I own 2 copies of games.
I own 3 copies of Mario Kart. Right. That's how bad it is.
So, sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. My conscience is clear. So anyway, so you download the game image onto your hard drive, and then you want to move it to your supercard. Well, that requires that you use a piece of Windows software called the Supercard Patcher software, for lack of a better name. You load the program, you load the ROM image into the software. You have to set a whole bunch of little parameters. Click this, check that, don't click this. It doesn't work if you choose that. And then it writes it to the card, patching in all of these weird things that are required to make that game work off the slot 2 device. That's what we put up with in the early years, well, early months, I should say, of flash cards on the DS. As you would expect, things have evolved. We started getting better and better software, and the problem with it is you have a problem with compatibility, and we're going to get to that in a minute. How compatible are these patching programs? Well, as you can imagine, a human has to sit there somewhere in China probably, or Japan, wherever these things are made, and they have to get every single game, and they have to run it through this patcher and find out whether it works or not, and if it doesn't, tweak the patcher a little bit and release an update. So let's say that you go out and you buy Diddy Kong Racing. And you're saying, okay, now that I own it, I can feel justified in hitting Google and finding a copy of it. You go find it, you run it through the Supercard Patcher, you copy it to your device, and it doesn't work. That's because the guy that writes this stuff hasn't had access to it yet. He doesn't know the nuances, and there's no way you can fix it. You have to sit on your hands and not play Diddy Kong or play off your original cartridge, which is what a lot of people end up doing. So the evolution, finally somebody said, you know, we could fit one of these. We could fit a super card or a flash card into a slot 1 device. So you started having these flash 1 or the slot 1 devices come out. One of the very first ones was the DS Link. And the DS Link was great. The patch, it still had to use patching software, which kind of sucked, but it was simple. It was easy. You selected the image, you selected what drive you wanted, which, flash card you wanted to copy it to, you hit go, and it does it. No weird no weird options to choose, and the compatibility was great. So that kind of ruled the roost. I've used the DS Link up until, about a month ago. I've been using it for a good deal of time because it was so great. Then I tried to talk to Chris about it. And right about this time, the X9 Ninja Pass came out. And it was real early. I mean, the Ninja Pass, it had some great possibilities, but the interface on the card sucked so bad. There was no software. Their boast was, we don't need patched ROMs. We don't need patched images. You can just download them and drop them right on your card, and they work. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is heaven. This is what we've been waiting for. And for the most part, it worked. But there was all sorts of crap you had to jump through. You had to trim the ROMs yourself. You had to
stuff that I don't like to do.
You have to make your own save file. All of these things that piss Chris off.
That's right.
And I told Chris, I said, listen, you got to get one of these X9s because you don't have to patch the ROMs anymore, and everything works. All these weird games that didn't work on the older cartridges, the Animal Crossings and what were some of the other ones that didn't work? Nacho Libre, like anybody cares. Dead and Furious. Actually, Nacho Libre is actually kind of cool, but whatever. Anyway.
Diddy
Kong Racing. So all these games that didn't work right on the DS Link, they didn't work on the Supercard. These all worked on the X9. I said, Chris, this is the compatibility we're looking for. And I said, but I know it's going to piss you off because it's got this and this. And he's like, no, I'll just keep my Supercard.
Right.
Totally understandable. I mean, he can live without Nacho Libre. it's not a problem for him.
Yeah.
And you could do without Diddy Kong.
The thing is, the thing that really got me interested in this, other than the homebrew stuff, because some of this homebrew stuff, like DS Organized, and even this P-Cross DS and so forth, or the aforementioned iPod player, I think that's really cool stuff. Just being able to try this stuff out, and there's always the hope that eventually the Frodo DS will eventually get to good speed, and I can play Commodore 64 on the DS.
That'd be awesome.
Other than that, like Shane, I would love to be able to take my entire 56 DS game card collection and just plop it on one little device. I don't know how many times, and in this case I holds 6 games. That's not enough for me. And I don't know how many times I've gone somewhere and somebody will be like, hey, let's play some Metro Pinball or multiplayer. Let's play Mario Kart. And I'll be like, damn, I didn't bring it this time.
Yeah, I don't have that one with me.
It drives me crazy. I mean, I never know what game I'm going to want to play with other people at any given time.
Right.
So I can't carry all these cartridges with me. So for me, this is awesome. I mean, and Shane's been doing this for a long time now. It's only, with the Super Card Lite, I started to do it, but the problem is I wasn't able to completely do it because of games such as Animal Crossing, which are pretty much unplayable on the Super Card Lite. Here comes the R4, full speed. At least from what I can tell, there's a little bit of a lag here and there loading when you're coming in and out of a building, but otherwise the game plays like 95% flawless, So something like that really made me look in its direction. And then I saw some of the user interface, and then, of course, 2 of the things I loved were the fact that you can trim the ROMs, and there's 0 patching.
Yeah,
now, one of the drawbacks, right? One of the drawbacks out there for some people may be that you won't be able to play any of the Game Boy Advance homebrew or any of that stuff. Which kind of, in a way, is a drag because there's a lot of really cool little emulators and all. The Game Boy Advance homebrew has been really a burgeoning thing for some time now. There's a lot of neat stuff on there, like the, just the Game Boy, the regular Game Boy emulator is fantastic because now you can play your old Game Boy games on your DS. Games that I have in a closet that are collecting dust that, for me to play again, I would have to dig out the old Game Boy to play. I can just load them up. I mean, I own Kirby Block Ball, okay? Or Mario P-Cross. I own these games, and it's nice to be able to take them out again and be able to play them on the DS in one little central unit. I mean, backwards compatibility besides. It's just a fantastic thing to do again. Some of that stuff you can't do on the R4. So what's great about the R4 is you can keep the Super Card Lite in your slot 2, whatever, hole.
In your slot 2.
Yes. You can keep that present at all times and have the R4 connected through the slot 1, and you're given the option to have both, and you can piggyback on top of each other to meet whatever you want to do at that given time.
And that's a good point. For people who enjoy the Rumble Pack, for people who have the Opera web browser, and you need that slot 2 for other stuff, a slot 2 flash device doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right, exactly. But
now, the fact that you can get away from patching, I want to get back to this. The fact that you can get away from patching makes one great thing happen. And this, we're going to move on to game compatibility. Game compatibility is the holy grail for most people when it comes to flashcards. I want to know if I go out today and buy a brand new DS game that came out today, that I will be able to play it on my flash cart before the night's over. Providing somebody releases it where I can get one.
Right, exactly.
But suffice to say, I don't want to say, I get to wait 2 weeks for Team Supercard to come out with a patch, or I got to wait for some clever hacker to come out with a new DAT file. I want to say, if I can get a hold of it, I can play it. And that's what the R4 delivers. So far, I have not been able to find any game in my collection that won't run on it. That is amazing. That is, to me, the most important aspect. I could do without a great interface. I could do with having to trim my own ROMs. I can do with all of that crap. What I can't do without is knowing that some game I really, really want to play, I can't play on the thing. So that, to me, is the part of the trifecta that really makes the R4 important to me. Game compatibility's there. I mean, you don't have to worry about it.
The only thing limiting to you at this point would be the size of the micro SD card which goes into it.
Absolutely true, and that's
currently it's at 2 gigs, which is, in my opinion, more than enough for me right now. I have pretty much most of my collection on there. I mean, obviously I don't have something like Final Fantasy III on there at the moment, due to the fact that not only is it large anyway, well, I would still have it on there, but I finished the game already. I have no reason to play it again, so I wouldn't want to take up the memory. But for the most part, I have every other game that I own on there. I have my Meteos, I have my Magnetica, and and what's great is I'm able to take my save games from my cartridges and plant them right over onto this card.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. I mean, anytime I go now to like the doctor's or something, and if I have to go to the doctor's office and sit, or a dentist, whatever, barbershop, movie theater, I can pull this out and have instant access to my entire catalog of games that I own. I legitimately own. It's fantastic.
The other part of the whole game compatibility thing is in many cards, including slot 1 and slot 2 cards, the type of memory that you buy is paramount to whether or not the game will successfully run, or it'll run slow, or it'll hiccup, or it'll crash. There are some people that have to go out and buy a special speed. For example, on the DS Link, if I remember right, it was either the DS Link or the SuperCard.
Isn't there a specific memory you had to get or something?
You
Kingston
had to buy.
Or something like that?
Yeah, you had to buy like a Kingston 512 megabyte card in order to run Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. Otherwise, it would randomly lock up, it would randomly crash, it would randomly fail to start. And it was all because the memory speed and the memory access was just a nanomillisecond of a hair too fast or too slow. The good news, before I continue with what the good news is, the X9 Ninja Pass is even worse. In some respects, I should say it's worse. You have to choose what speed of memory card you have. So when you first get the X9 and you put in your memory and you stick it in the machine, your DS, and you start a game, it may not run. So you shut it off, you turn it back on. You have to choose whether your memory is considered fast, medium, slow, or turbo. Now, no matter how fast a memory I put in that thing, it never went above medium. But, of course, if you could find one that ran in fast, it might run better. It was just like, this even makes me mental. And if it makes me mental, Chris would just throw it out the window.
That's true.
The R4, it doesn't matter what memory I put in. I've got a SanDisk standard 2 gigabyte card, runs just as good as a Kingston 1 gig. And that is important. You know what? People want simplicity. People want to just plug this crap in and have it work. They don't want to choose how fast
That's
their
right. I
card is,
demand simplicity.
run through all these Yeah, Chris demands some. And Chris is the hardest customer.
In my defense, 10 years ago, I would have been I'd have all the time in the world to sit and play around with this stuff. Nowadays, it's kind of like, if I'm on a computer for more than an hour, I start getting eyeballs looking at me. You're like, what are you doing still on the computer and so forth. So I can't be sitting here devoting time to this kind of stuff unless I'm off and nobody's around me, So it's very limited, and I think I
totally understand. I should be off more. But, I'm not a good husband like that. But suffice to say, game compatibility is 99.9. I won't say 100 because somebody will say, oh, well, you know what? I found this weird, obscure Japanese game that doesn't work. As far as I'm concerned, it's 99.9% compatible, and that is perfect.
Monosuke Tududi Kanaka de Mahjong 2 5 Ultra Edition does not work on the R4. So you are wrong!
You're wrong. You lose.
Good day, sir.
No. Good day, sir. Thank you very much. I was hoping you'd get that. If only most of our listeners got that, I'd be so pleased. Anyway, now let's move on to the last part of the trifecta, which this is very important to a lot of people. It's not important to me, but it's important to a lot of people. Homebrew compatibility. In order to better understand why homebrew compatibility is so flaky with slot 1 cards and the R4 too, is R4D2? No, never mind. Got off on a tangent there. The problem is look at it from a homebrew point of view. Let's say you're a homebrew developer. You're a programmer. You work on the weekends, a couple hours a night, and you're writing software for homebrew use. What card are you going to target to run your homebrew on? Whatever the most popular card is, right? Whatever card sells the most that everybody has, that's what you're going to write and test your homebrew on. Well, SuperCard is like the most popular flash card out there. So homebrew developers, understandably so, that's why more people write software for Windows than for Macs, is because there's more people out there to use it. These guys test and develop on the SuperCard SD. Well, the architecture of the SuperCard SD versus the SuperCard Lite versus the SuperCard Rumble versus the SuperCard 1 versus the DS Link versus the X9 Flash, all of these things have different internal architecture with how it reads and writes to memory. So if you take a SuperCard homebrew title and you throw it on your R4, it don't work, because it got to go and read and write from the memory, which it can't do because it doesn't understand the R4's architecture. This is an uphill battle that is largely lost. A lot of people want DS Organized. DS Organized, it's PDA software. It's got IRC client built in. It's got text viewer. It's got a picture viewer. Got to have DS Organized. Well, DS Organized was written to run on SuperCards. Well, then the author got bombarded with people saying, oh, it's got to run on DS Link. It's got to run on DS Link. So this guy started color coding his releases. This is how bad it is. DS Organized Red, DS Organized Blue, DS Organized Green, and based on what type of card you had to get the right version. See, Chris would have thrown that out the window by now, too. And understandably so. Well, the author got so fed up with it that he said, I'm leaving the scheme, I am going out, I am not going to write DS Organized anymore. And I think that sent a signal that something had to change. Because here was the most popular homebrew developer, and he left. He said, no more. I'm not going to fight with you guys anymore. So what they came up with, the guy that wrote the original code to read and write from memory said, you know what, there's got to be an easier way to do this. So he came up with something called the Dynamic libfat Library something or other. DLDI is what it stands for, is the mnemonic for it. And basically what it said is no matter what card you're using, as long as you have a plug-in for it in our little patching thing, then you can run anything on anything. So if I download the SuperCard version of DS Organized, and this guy has used the latest libraries that incorporate DLDI, I can load it up into a patcher and say, I'm using an R4, patch it to work with my card. It reads the thing a little bit and goes, boop, ready to go. I drop it on my R4, and it works. It's great. If you do not have an R4 and you have an M3 Simply or you have a SuperCard 1, there are plugins for this patcher to support all major brands, including the X9 Ninja Pass, including the DS Link. So if you were to ask me a month ago whether the R4 was a solid choice for homebrew, I would have said, hell no. You're not going to run anything on there. Forget it. It's got Moonshell built into it, which is cool, but that's about it. You're not going to run anything else on there. And that would turn a lot of people off. But today I can tell you that any new homebrew that comes out is going to support DLDI, and it's going to support you being able to run it on the R4. Where's the bad part to this? Well, there's a lot of depreciated homebrew out there. In other words, homebrew that is never going to be updated again, the source code's not available, and it is as it is. That stuff, written probably for the SuperCard, is never, ever, ever going to work on the R4. Ever. You're not going to be able to patch it because it doesn't feature the DLDI code. So if you're interested in running something that is not maintained and well kept, this is where a little research will save you a lot of time. You go out and find out what you're looking for in homebrew. Make sure it's DLDI supported. And if it is, then you're good to go with the R4. If it's not, you may have to do what Chris is doing. Get the R4 to handle your Nintendo DS commercial games, and you're going to need the
SuperCard for the homebrew.
For everything else.
For everything else, it doesn't support the R4, right? I think the only drawback so far that I'm seeing to the R4, other than the limited homebrew stuff so far anyway, is that some of the DS games that have the download play, are a little finicky, like Mario Kart and everything. So,
and unfortunately, that's really a problem with all
right.
pass-through devices. You're going to find more and more. DS download. This is just a quick overview. I don't want to get into the real technical details of it, but basically, in order to run software either off a slot 2 or slot 1 device, you have to bypass some of Nintendo's security features. That works whether you flash your DS, whether you're using a Pass-Me card, whether you're using one of these next-gen Slot 1 cards. No matter what you're doing, you're bypassing the RSA checks and the signatures inside of the Nintendo DS. On some games when you transfer a multiplayer game across, it does a quick check and says, oh, what's your RSA signature key? And since you're bypassing it, there is no key. So the game fails to work. Now, as long as you're playing with two DSs that have been altered so that they play games that way, you're pretty much good to go. However, if you're one of those people that are a mall rat and like to hang out in the mall and play with other people who have non-hacked Nintendo DSs or are not using a pass-through type device, as Chris said, you're going to find many multiplayer games that do require the RSA check will not play single card from you to them. It works the other way. If they've got the card and they send you the game, it should work fine. And there are some games that don't use the RSA check at all. Star Fox, Magnetica, Clubhouse games, none of those games require the RSA check, so you can play those single player. I know it sounds complicated, but we would be journalistically irresponsible if we didn't tell you that there is a drawback to using this sort of a system.
Yeah.
The other thing that really, now that we've talked about the whole trifecta thing, let's talk about the bonus features of the R4. The two big three actually. The first thing that everyone wants to know, can I scan it? Can I scan it? Can I put another skin on it? They don't care how well it works as long as it looks good. I've never figured that out. Yes, the R4 is completely skinnable. There are tons of great skins already. Chris introduced, I've got a couple of them on mine. One of them it looks just like a DS control screen that Chris hooked me up with. That's great. And, of course, they've got all these really cool-looking Mac-looking ones. They've got a Vista one.
Yeah, I really like the one that looks like the DS GUI.
Me too.
You know, it's
that.
really cool. Although I switched over to the there's a new one that kind of has the PSP I guess GUI look. It's all different colors. Except somebody took out the guy took out the PlayStation controller, and threw in the DS as the game logo, which is really cool.
Nice.
I'll have to show you a picture of it.
Yeah, you have to send me a picture of that. But anyway, so it is skinnable, so you can make it look like the way you want. You can add sound effects, blah, 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 whatever. Now, the two other great features of the R4 that we cannot go without talking about. First of all, if any of you have a flash card device, you will know that if you want to change your brightness settings on your light, you're taking the card out, or you're booting to the DS menu, changing the light, resetting the DS, going back into your flash card and playing your game. Or if you're lucky enough to have a super card, they have a little tool called A-Light that will let you change the lighting from within the menu, dump back to the menu, and play your game. Well, for those of us that have evolved and gone to the DS Link or to the X9 Ninja Pass or whatever, A-Light doesn't work on that, of course, because it's old homebrew. So, what are your options? Well, the cool thing is built into the R4 is a light control. And if you take a look at the pictures on one of the links, if you go to the Slot 1 review that's in our link list, there's actually a picture of the interface. On the bottom screen, in the upper left, is a little light icon, which you can use to toggle your brightness, and it does hold into the flash, into the firmware. So you don't have to set it every time, like you do with A-Light. So, basically, this is real. Let me tell you why this is important. People are lazy. I am totally lazy. I will be the first one to admit it. If I have to go out of my way to change my brightness settings, I'm going to probably leave it on the brightest setting or the second brightest setting all the time. Because if I'm in daylight or I'm out, playing with my friends in the, the networking room or whatever, I need a brighter light. But if I'm laying in bed or on the crapper at night or whatever, right, I may not need that much light.
I think that's fantastic. I love that.
I am so lazy, I will not go in and turn down my light, which eats away my battery faster, right? Brighter light, more battery power. I have found that since I use the R4 and I consciously change my lighting to meet my needs, my battery lasts a whole lot longer, considerably longer. So that's a definite plus to the R4.
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, is the soft reset. While you're in the midst of a game, you don't have to reboot the whole DS. You just hold the trigger on the top of the left, the top left and right, and you hit all the face buttons, and it brings you right back to the main menu. So, if you're done playing, say, Bomberman Land Touch, and you feel like playing a little bit of P-Cross DS, you just pop right out, and there you go. Or any game they throw in there in your list.
Now, I know a lot of people out there who are big into the Flash community say, oh, well, you know what, but you've been able to do that with the Supercard. You were able to do that with the DS Link. Unfortunately, it was very hit and miss whether the in-game reset worked on those cards. The problem is just like anything else with patching. How do you think it got the in-game reset to work? It went in and it patched into some input routines, and it said, oh, well, we'll take a peek in here every so often and see if they're pushing all these buttons. Now, I don't know exactly how the R4 version does it. I can tell you that you don't have to patch your own. Here's the thing that happened on the Supercard. Let me tell you a story. You get the latest game, and you go ahead and you throw it on there, and you say, well, I'm going to turn on the enable game reset, in-game reset. You spend that time, you patch it, you copy it manually over to your card, you take the card out of the computer, put the card into the Supercard, put the Supercard into your DS, turn on your DS, navigate the menus, run the sucker, and it hangs. Doesn't work. Turn off the DS, unplug the Supercard, take the SD card out, put the SD card in the reader, put the reader in your PC, open up a window, repatch it with in-game reset turned off, recopy it to your SD card, put it back in the SD card reader, blah, blah. You get the idea.
Yeah.
It makes you not even want to play games anymore, having to go through that. In this case, if the reset doesn't work, and I've only found in 2 games it doesn't work, Nacho Libre, which again most people don't care about, and Space Invaders DS.
I don't know how I discovered Space Invaders. I just happened to be playing Space Invaders. I mean, you know.
In Nacho Libre's case, the game just won't boot.
Yeah.
But here's the difference. Oh, it didn't work with the reset on. Hold down the buttons, hit the reset, turn the reset off, select the game, and you're running again. That's the difference.
Is that right? So Nacho Libre will not work at all.
It will not boot at all if
Wow.
the reset's on.
And so you hit the right trigger and you turn it off, right, from the main menu? Is that what you're saying?
Or you can touch it, yeah.
Right, okay. But I usually use the triggers. But
yeah, you can use the trigger.
And then when you boot it, it's fine. Wow, that's really wild.
Fine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is some sort of trick that the R4 is using to make that work. Maybe even does some sort of real on the fly real time patching. I don't know. But for whatever it is so much more compatible than the Supercard was.
Interesting.
So much more compatible than the DS Link. And if it doesn't work, you don't have to go back and do it again. Clean ROMs are the bomb. That's all I can say. So that's kind of in a nutshell why the R4 is definitely what I would recommend for your cart needs. If old school homebrew, if GBA compatibility is what you're looking for, this may not necessarily be the card for you. However, I'm betting that if you're listening to this conversation and you're listening and you're interested in this product, you probably already have a slot 2 device of some sort. Now what you'll need to do is augment it with the R4. And you'll find that you have absolutely the best solution. Chris, am I right? You've got both solutions.
Yes, I do.
Is there anything you can't do?
Not offhand that I can think of. It's been pretty good. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun. I mean, the few homebrew things that I do like to do, you know, I mean, if I want to play them, I could play them on the Supercard Lite, and you know, I got my whole entire DS collection on my R4, so I'm good to go. And so far, I haven't found any games that won't run on it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, you don't have to make little save files. It does it automatically for you. Or, you know, for the most part, I went and spent some time and took all my save games off my actual cartridges and plopped them on. No problem whatsoever.
Now,
It
just
does
so
have
I
a tool for
clarify
that.
Yeah, the R4 will not allow you to dump your save games off of your real cartridges. Mm-hmm. You will have to have a slot 2 device for that. And using a piece of software called Rain or Rain Moon, it depends on what you end up getting a hold of and which slot 2 card you have. The slot 1s do not yet have a means of dumping your save games off your cartridges. So if that is something that concerns you, you know, that's something you'll have to consider on a case-by-case basis. Do you really want to restart Pirates of the Caribbean all over again? It might be worth it if you don't have to carry the card around, right?
Right, exactly.
I don't know. So there you have it.
So, well, I think that's about
well,
wraps
there you
that
go.
up.
I think we're done with our phone. Way cool. Where can you get these things? Obviously, you're not going to get one at Best Buy. You're not going to get one at Fry's. These are legally gray, to say the very least. My recommendation would be to go to realhotstuff.com.
They've been really good, yeah.
they've been really good, fast turnaround, good service. They take PayPal, which is very important.
Quick turnarounds, right? I mean,
very quick turnaround. They're local. They're in the U.S.
They're on the East Coast, or I think they're coming out of Jersey. So,
it's not like you have to order one from like Play Asia and have to wait 12 weeks for it to get here.
It's great.
Fair shipping. It's just a good place to do business with. I think the last time I saw them, they were $50, $50 or 55, something like
45 plus shipping.
And $5 shipping.
And there is a 5% off coupon floating around if you're part of a certain forum. Circle.
Yeah, if you go to scdev.org, you can get in on
They've got their own little section of the forum over there, so you've got some nice support if you have any problems with anything. And
yeah, it's worth a couple bucks. You might as well get it.
Yeah, what the heck? Takes off the shipping.
So, yeah.
But then on top of that, of course, you'll need a micro SD card. The 1 gig ones are pretty much dirt cheap now. I mean, you can get one for $15 shipped. Otherwise, the 2 gig one is now $45 at Newegg, for instance. You can get a SanDisk OEM edition of the card. So I would recommend picking up a SanDisk if possible. They seem like they're pretty high quality.
Yeah, micro SDs are everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find them anywhere now. It's not like 6 months ago when they were the cream of the crop, and the only place you could get them were at Verizon.
It's not a fringe item anymore.
Yeah, it's not a fringe item. And the good news is the R4 will support up to 4 gigs.
And they're coming down the pipe too.
And I think they're due out at the end of February, early March. 4 gigs will be available, which is great because that's going to make those 2 giggers drop like flies.
Excellent.
So you're going to be able to get 2 giggers for $20 at some point.
The $45 I spent on mine. I mean, that's nothing compared to what you paid. I mean, didn't you pay like over $100?
I paid $100.
It's only about, 6 months ago or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's because stupid SanDisk made a deal with Verizon
for initial
to allow them exclusivity to the 2 gig card for their stupid chocolate phone or whatever the hell
chocolate
that is.
LG,
the chocolate LG or whatever the hell it is. Verizon had an exclusive right for 90 days on the SanDisk 2 gig. So if you wanted a 2 gig card, you had to pay $100. I wanted a 2 gig card, I paid $100. Now the good news is a lot of people say, well, how many games can I get on that? That's the real common question. All depends on the game. Elite Beat Agents is a 128 meg card. How many of those can you fit on there? That's right. Fortunately, most of them aren't that big. So right now, with an average collection of different games, I got 48 games.
Yeah, I've got about 46 or so, actually. And
yeah, that's because I've got like Elite Beat Agents.
That's with a 2 gig card.
That's with
a 2 gig card, and I got about 46 games of my 56 game collection. And of those games, afterwards, I think I have about 650 megs left on my card. So,
yeah, I've got a bunch of MP3s and crap sitting on mine.
I'm set to go whenever, like for instance, I think the next big game I'm probably going to be grabbing, well, one of the ones I'm most looking forward to is the Konami Arcade Classics. So.
Oh man, can you totally not wait
for exactly. That? So when that comes out, and I'll be grabbing that over at, I'll probably not GameStop. They'll probably want $45 for it or something crap like that.
Probably the Rat Bash. I can see if they're pre-ordering that.
You know what? I don't know. I don't know if they have that on there, but that. Definitely, we'll be reviewing that sometime down the road.
There'll be no doubt. That'll be.
I don't know when it's coming out. I thought it was March, but that's my next big game, and I'll be throwing that right on here just so I can have everything with me. That'll be fantastic. I'm running out of room on my shelf. I'm more worried about my little DS game shelf than my memory right now.
Oh, dude, it's insane. You got to figure. I've got 100 cards.
It's insane.
I've got one of those big, 32-gallon storage containers you get at Walmart. I've got one of those packed, and I've got an entire bookshelf filled with DS cases that just haven't gotten out to the shed yet. I think one day I'm going to do for my Retro Gaming Radio show, I'm going to do a Retro Gaming Radio you know how they had that What's in Al Capone's glove box? I'm going to have a What's in Shane's shed and have my wife tail me with a video camera.
That'd be great.
And I'm going to dig through all of these boxes. I mean, I've got old Lynx. I got old Atari Lynxes in there, Commodore 64 discs. Funny. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be a cool show. I'd watch
that'd be great. I'd watch that.
That'd be a great reality show. What's in Shane's shed? I think I'm going to do that. That's good stuff. Well, Chris, I think we've prattled on enough for this episode.
Yeah, we've had a lot of things to talk about this time, I think. You think going on the site that we need to talk about? I don't think so. We did some...
No, not really. I think we added Wii support between the last show and now.
I think a lot of people are pretty. I think we've discussed that in the last show. Yeah.
Oh, we have. Okay. All right. Then we got the Wii support thing. One thing that you can look forward to is a merging of Wii and DS content on the dual screen radio site. We're working on that whenever I get free time. Basically, you're going to be able to go to one spot, dualscreenradio.com. For many of you clever people, you'll notice I registered WePlayRadio.com, and there's sort of a mirror site of the dual screen radio, only with Wii stuff. We're working on combining the two sites, and if you never want to see Wii stuff, if you're like, I just like DS, screw the Wii, you'll be able to go into your preferences and say, only show me Nintendo DS stuff. And from that point on, the whole site will basically revolve around the DS for you, and likewise for the Wii. It'll hide registration codes for DS games, or hide the Wii registration, whatever. And of course, you can have both. So that's what I would like to see happen on the website, because a lot of DS people are getting Wiis, a lot of our fans are getting Wiis, and we don't want to ignore the Weevolution that's going on.
Although I'll tell you what, it's very hard. I mean, I've been so attached. Attached to my.
You've been attacked when DS is attacked.
That's the thing. I got too much of that child monster thing going on here with the DS. Yeah, I'm so caught up in that story, I can't stop going back to it. No, I mean, I've been so attached to the DS lately that I just can't get my hands off it to go back and play the Wii. I haven't played my Wii as much as I'd like to. I mean, the bowling especially. That I've been getting caught up on all these DS games. You know, it's crazy. And I like I said, I think the main thing is the DS is portable, and I can play it anywhere. And I'm just getting my gaming out of the way while doing other things that don't involve me being in front of the TV. You know, plus the Wii really is. I have to say, it is a party device, you know. So, you know, it's not as much fun to play it alone. And you know, like if I'm sitting here, today's my day off, for instance. If I'm sitting here and my wife's at work, I mean, me playing the Wii isn't probably going to be on my menu as much as if she was around. You know, when I could do some throwdown with bowling or whatnot. But anyway,
the time will come. The online development kits are out circulating to developers, so. I expect to see a metric ass load of Wi-Fi enabled video games coming for the Wii soon. So, early adopters, chin up. We're going to get Wi-Fi games soon enough.
Yes. Eventually, hopefully, we will be getting more Wi-Fi. Alrighty. I guess that wraps it up.
This is Shane R. Monroe.
And this is Chris Hentschel. And hopefully join us this time next month for yet another brilliant episode of Dual Screen Radio.
Where listening is good.
It's good. Bye-bye.